The leader looms over the kneeling man, screaming at him not to play dumb, hurling dimwit at him like it's truth, while they soldiers stand there, eyes locked on him, and their leader demands, "Do you even realize what you've done?" Then he completely snaps, screaming at the guy, "You neglig." He ditched his duties and made a full-on clown out of himself. To say the victims were the Freud family's oldest son and a handful of butlers because of. Right after they got the gift, that box suddenly went berserk out of nowhere, exploding like it had a mind of its own. And then plot twist, what he found is way worse than anyone expected. The thing showed up again, same cursed item that guy was supposed to have cleared. The leader calls out Alf Reed by name, demanding he spill what he knows about this whole mess. After he accidentally ratted on a noble, the leader snaps, then throws him into a prison deep in the abyss. She told him to rot and stew on his sins, straight in hell while Alf just freezes there, staring into nothing, trying to figure out how his life ever landed in this mess. Alf can't stop replaying that job in his mind, convinced he missed nothing during the check, because there's just no way he'd hand over a cursed item without purifying it first. And then it hits him, Zaid is doing the exact same thing he always did back then. He imagines a shady guy with a nasty grin, the kind of person who screams, "I'm about to cause trouble." The truth slams into Alfred, and ice-cold sweat erupts across his skin as he gets hurled off the edge, tumbling into the abyss with his hands yanked behind his back. The tale whips back 10 hours to the royal capital of Ilmalta, revealing the capital city of Urwida roared with traffic, towering buildings clawing at the sky as the streets stayed packed and relentless. Where a young man is seen sprinting through the city at top speed, like the whole world is chasing him. As fast as he can, slipping straight past locals who are just out shopping like it's any other day at the market stall. Alf rips into a dark apple with one huge bite, like he's just grabbed it mid-mission while he was. As he strolls through the city like he owns the place, he passes by barrels stacked high against the stone buildings. As he barrels through the market, a jeweler yells that his gems are looking freaking too good, and the crowd can't help but stare. He points it out and dares Alf to buy one, so he can't help but ask, "You in?" Another merchant struts up with jaw-dropping, top-tier fabrics, practically nudging him to snag something nice for a girlfriend, but Self barrels forward without slowing as a bunch of kids streak past him, laughing and tearing it up in the middle of the street. He watches them disappear with a soft, knowing smile, quietly nodding at how calm and perfect the world feels at this exact moment. From the rooftops, he cranes his gaze toward the mountains and grins, because the town is finally alive again. Alright, so he grits his teeth and keeps moving right on through for a little longer until someone nearby is yelling at the top of their lungs and staring at some random dude loitering in the street like something's seriously off. A whole pack of kids panics, bolts in every direction, and screams at this guy, "Don't touch it. Touching that cursed tool will brand you too." The kids crowd around him in full panic, screaming their questions, raging that he didn't pray as they watch him, right as they scream for everyone to look right at his arm, where the black curse marks swell bigger by the second, and rage and dread crawl over his skin, and someone in the crowd snaps that the man is basically done for because the moment that mark appears, it usually means the end is already locked in. For the victim, it's already over, but the terrifying truth is the curse won't stay put. It'll crawl through the whole town. Two boots screech to a halt directly in front of them, and a voice barks, "Hold on." Kate bursts in and orders them to rush this to the military police right now, because those marks can be cured, and with a hard stare she snaps, asking the group if they were never taught how to deal with this. The kids don't handle it well at all. They bristle, fire off, "Who are you?" and wonder if she's about to start a fight, but the girl flashes a tiny smirk, like she's clocked every single move as it happens. The girl in the cape scans the whole group in one sharp glance, then it clicks, she realizes their next move. They're nothing but orphans stuck on the streets, and that's only the start of it and it finally clicks for her, this is exactly why they never called for help. They'd be begging for help, but even if they tried, the military police wouldn't let them get a word in. Alf stays ice cold and just blurts, "All right," before deciding to grab control and take charge of everything. He strides up to the kid with the black marks and tells him straight up that he's going to inspect his arm. Standing outside those ancient buildings, Alf leans in and demands the kid tell him the exact moment the mark first started showing up. So the kid blurted everything out, right after he grabbed that weird object he stumbled on yesterday. Alf demands answers about the weird thing and the kid snaps back, yep, that's exactly what caused it. The kid jabbed a finger at a metal ring on the ground and blurted, "That's the one," and admitted he only snagged it because it looked pretty and he figured he could flip it for a ton of money. Alf leans in, glaring down at the. He stares dead serious, then tells you, no doubt about it, that this is definitely a cursed tool. Sure, a shop might drop a decent price for something like that, but this is way bigger than money and the real problem is about to hit hard. Alf stares at the ground, stunned that a curse mark actually appeared in a place like this, and then he leans in and demands the kid confirm what happened. But the kid just slumps there, miserable. While the other orphans spiral into panic, they insist they must throw that kid out immediately, or the curse will creep through the entire town. Alf just lets out a weary sigh, stunned at how fast these kids turned on each other. These marks only show up when someone messes with a cursed tool, so yeah, that's what it means. So long as they don't grab that ring with their own hands, it's never going to spread to any of them. He tells the group, relax, none of that terrifying stuff you're freaking out about is happening. But the other kids refuse to believe him, so they start screaming that it'll spread to everyone and they demand action right now. Alf glares at them like he's fed up, then just bluntly asks, "Aren't you supposed to be friends?" Then he shoots out his arm and clamps onto the kid's hand, demanding he let him see that arm. Alf drops to his knees and kicks off his ritual. A massive magic circle ignites around both of them, blazing with power. And he yells to the gods of Mother Ilmaryuta, staring straight at the kid's hand that's still. He's still smeared with those filthy black marks, and once his prayer is done, he begs the gods to spare the kid's life. Suddenly, a blinding light starts blasting out of the kid's arm, the boy you just sit there and watch it all unfold right in front of your eyes, frozen in place. His eyes went wide as the glow began to fade away, washing everything clean. He tore the darkness open, just one heartbeat, and right before the ritual even wraps up, the kid just sits there and stares down at his hands like they're about to change everything. Like he's staring at them for the very first time. He leans in and tells Alf, that pain and that numbness, they're completely wiped out. But Alf just grins back and blurts, thank goodness, because yeah, he confirms the curse is gone for real. Everything's totally fine, until the other kids start causing chaos again. One of them jabs a finger at Alf and he screams that he didn't break a single thing. He insists Alf didn't just hide the pain, he covered it up to fool them. The main bully kid snaps at him, roaring that he's not buying any of this and that he won't get tricked by some lie. He cuts him off, shouting Alf is convinced the only way to break a curse is to hire a true pro from his own country. So he pushes onward and Alf stays. Total silence, he just locked onto that kid, staring him down with a blazing intensity burning in his eyes. He finally breaks his silence and tells the kid the truth. He isn't a monster at all, he's a curse breaker who fights for the kingdom. And he snatches the kid by the shirt, ripping him up mid-sentence. You could tell he'd already wrapped up healing the curse mark on the other boy's arm. It hits the kid straight in the face and practically dares him to stop bullying his friends. The kid's face is pure terror, like he's about to burst into panic any second, shaking and drenched in sweat under Alf's crushing stare. That's enough to make the whole pack of bullies bolt in full panic, leaving out. Alf just stood there and groaned, totally done with everything going on. He lowers his gaze to the kid he just saved, asks if he's alright, and then realizes the bullies are finally gone. The kid stares at the ground, swears he's fine, then snaps. He doesn't have anyone to play with anymore, not since his. Alf pauses for a heartbeat and just stares at him. The kid blurts out one final thank you, shouting Mr. Cursebreaker, and when Alf freezes in place and the kid flashes a small, real smile, like the world finally hits pause and lets them breathe. The story suddenly rips over to the Cursed Tool Research Lab, a massive stone fortress where the hallways rise into sky-high ceilings, framed by towering pillars, and right then inside, everything's in chaos. Someone demands answers about those shattered pieces on the ground, like, where did these broken shards even come from? So Lord Valerius scans the wreckage and declares that the uncursed tool they got delivered just the other day is what's left. A worried worker pulls out the tool's curse is still active, and he looks dead serious as the truth hits. And it's a full-blown disaster. Everything spirals out of control fast. He took control, slaughtered 5 people, and smashed the whole place into ruins. Zaid stares at the wreckage, jaw clenched as dread creeps in. With a pretty annoyed look, he shot back, Are you seriously telling me you want me to smash the curse on something this twisted? And guess what? This mess is Zaid Vengus, the absolute F*** King Menace. A top-tier cursebreaker who serves the king directly. Valerius cuts in, saying they're desperate to track down whoever built the tool first, because the people who only royal nobles could have done this. So he locks eyes with Zaid and demands to know if he has any idea who was behind it. Zaid turns and starts to stride off, claiming he'll hunt down whoever. Back then, Valerius is wrecked with stress, practically begging him to fix it before it all spirals out of. It turns into a full-blown national disaster, and Zaid just locks eyes with everyone, gives them a chilling glare, and promises he'll get it done. Time flips, young Alf swings a door open and steps into the office like he owns the moment. Zaid's hunched over his desk, then he snaps his head up and greets you with a bright good morning. In the flashback, Alf throws Zaid a warm greeting as he steps into the office, and straight up tells him he's stumbled on something seriously intriguing. With a showman's flourish, he yanks out a metal bracelet, and then tells you the twist: it's actually a civilian-made item. He cracks the whole thing down like, look at this, totally brand new pieces, and they're packed with rare gems and a whole load of magic. Alf blurts that he could have just handed them straight to the military police and let their own researchers deal with it, but to drag them back into the office. Zaid listens to the whole story and blurts out, so you're saying Alf basically ripped all of this straight from some local? Alf doesn't even argue. He just looks Zaid in the eye and admits he's blown away that Zaid cracked it that fast. Zaid lets out a heavy sigh, snaps that he's meddlesome, and tells Alf he's got it all figured out. With nothing but free time haunting him, Alf fires back, calling him bored is downright rude. Alf flashes a casual smile and shoots back like, what's the big deal? As long as he's out there helping people. Alf barrels through his tail, and every now and then, bam, he even trips over rare items he can't believe he found. He's dead convinced that hunting down new cursive tools like these can genuinely level up the whole country. And he says, find something like this, and it could spark the next huge scientific breakthrough. As Lord Valerius listens, his mind blurts out, he has absolutely nobody knows what the young master of the fun red family is really up to. Alf shoots his hand out, snatches the metal bracelet, and leans in like it's hiding the truth. His eyes flare with light as he unleashes his magic to scan her workbench, zeroing in on the items she's made. His power hits the bracelet and it blares to life, lighting up bright, spinning through the air like it's trying to escape his hand. The truth is, his magic formula is already fully built, with not a single piece missing. And somehow, the whole activation clicks into place clean as a whistle. Al double-checks everything, confirming the details are locked in, confirming that the activation formula and the description formula both run perfectly, with zero problems. Alf keeps tapping into the magic flow, then grins, everything's converging exactly as it should. He tells the Lord, don't worry, there's zero chance this thing blows up, looking him straight in the eyes. He snapped his eyes to the whirling bracelet and urged them to hurry, break the curse already. Valerius says his methods are nothing fancy, but Alf just grins and insists he likes everything calm. Then Alf suddenly goes silent for a beat, staring straight ahead with a serious, battle-ready face. Valerius spots some shattered gears on the ground, eyes widening at how weird they look, and he wonders if this is the very next item on the list. So, Alf snaps back, it's none of your business, and shoves him with one last, sharp command, just do it. He locked in on his own work for the whole day. Valerius takes a step back, tells him, I've got it, and Alf snaps back, then concentrate. The Lord smirks and tells him to handle it just like always. Then everything slams into a dark memory flashes. Alf, tied up and bleeding hard like the nightmare won't let go, crumbled to the floor, totally shattered. The courtroom is jam-packed, soldiers fill every corner and the tension is suffocating. As the official lifts the decree, soldiers start barking orders, and then they shout Alf Reed with his title, a state cursebreaker, right into the tense air. Alf just stands frozen as the guy reads out the brutal sentence, treason against the nobles, then slams the final verdict. He's headed straight for the abyss. The king glares down at him and lays it all out. Alf is suspected of sending cursed items that never got properly cleaned, because that mistake has already racked up 5 brutal deaths. The king won't back down. He makes it crystal clear this isn't some random slip-up. They're setting him up, framing him for treasonous plotting against the crown's own people. And just like that, the official announcement hits. Alf's license is officially yanked for good, and they're throwing him out of the entire kingdom. The official wraps it up by asking Alf, got any objections? handing him one last shot to speak before everything snaps shut, which leads. Alf snapped, yelling back at them, demanding they explain what they meant by calling that item. Items unpurified. Sweat pours down his face as he looks totally stunned, yelling that he didn't do it and swears he never even gave the order to ship those tools. From the crowd, someone blurts that 5 people are dead and presses him hard, asking if he really. He doesn't feel a single shred of guilt for what he did. Alf keeps firing back, yelling that he's only doing his job over and over. He hit his job like always, but somehow nobody even bothered to listen. Alf keeps getting in your face, yelling at full volume that he checks every single item, strictly no excuses. And there's absolutely no way he'd ever let anything slip out of his hands while a live curse is still clinging to it. In the crowd, a bearded man glares at him and snaps that one of the people who died was family. His family. He snaps to Alf that for a state curse breaker, this kind of blunder is a total disaster. Then the sentence cuts off like the next hit is coming fast, and the official steps forward again and flat out says, "According to the documents we've got right here." Zaid Veng stepped forward and gave sworn testimony, pointing straight at the cursed tool that caused those deaths right before everything exploded. Alf personally scrubbed it clean and delivered it himself. So yeah, it's a full-blown setup that leaves. Alf is totally frozen in place. He can't even process what he's hearing as the truth finally crashes in. He can't believe Zaid would say something like that, but Zaid just keeps screaming that he's in a. The king doesn't flinch even once. He just tells Alf that his execution is set for sunset. The official snaps the final words, "You'll pay with your life," and tells Alf that those deaths are coming due while Alf just stands there totally wiped out as the truth finally slams into him. High in the mountains, they've got him hogtied, ready for the drop, and the official leans in. "So, got any last words?" So Alpha starts snapping. He's shouting that he's told them 1,000,000 times already, yelling, "I'm innocent," with all his lungs, but nobody's listening. He keeps screaming it's wrong, swearing on his honor that he didn't do a thing right up until someone finally snaps and swings a punch across his face just to shut him up. Alf slumps to the ground with a faint thud, then glances at the officials and the horror hits him. There's no escape from this. In his mind, the realization hits hard. It's not just the tools that are busted, this whole world feels cursed, like something's been wrong from the start. As the sun slips away, the world goes silent and pitch black, until all you can hear is something creeping along, slow and steady. In the dead quiet, he felt the last note slam shut, like the line was finally over for him. Alf looks absolutely wrecked, sweat pours down his face, his mouth twists in agony, and he's still fighting through it as he sprawls against those jagged rocks, he gasps, realizing he's still awake, and somehow that feels like a miracle because down here in this maze at the bottom of the abyss, surviving the fall is only the opening move. Your injuries start it, and the monsters usually make sure it ends. He jerks his shaky hand up, stunned that he can still move and still speak, then he just stares up from the dirt, eyes blazing with even more determination than before. The truth hits hard. Going back home to El Malta isn't even on the table anymore, and that's when. And right now, you can't even tell if he's going to crawl out of this hole alive, or if it's the last place he'll ever see. Alf digs his fingers into the dirt, gritting through the pain, forcing his body to surge forward while he tells himself, as long as these legs still move, I'm not stopping. He's not stopping, he'll keep pushing forward straight into what's next, and it's about to get bad. He plunges deeper into that pitch-black, gigantic tunnel, one that feels like it'll never end. Alf keeps pushing through the endless stone maze, but the longer he goes, the more the idea of an exit crawls into doubt. He's running on fumes and he's about to. Then boom, this wild flash of light exploded right beside him, sparking across the stone wall. He stops dead in his tracks, staring as a glowing, ghostly door materializes out of nowhere, right in his path. So Alf leans in for a closer look, and boom, he realizes the door isn't just a door, it's a cursed tool. He's stunned that cursed stuff is even showing up here. But honestly, the whole place already feels like it's under a curse. He snaps into action, thrusts out his hand, and conjures a magic circle to blast through the barrier and right the moment he pushes his power forward, the door snaps open and erupts in a blinding flash of light. When the light finally fades and the dust settles, Alf just stands there, breath held, waiting to see what he unlocked. Right in the middle of the path sits a gigantic, plain wooden coffin, like it's daring anyone to step closer. Alf stares at it, utterly baffled, like his brain just short-circuited. He looks at it all and can't shake the question, why would a dungeon like this even have a coffin or a graveyard? Alf peers into the open coffin and his mind races. If this is a royal tomb, then there's no way it wouldn't usually have. We usually stumble on rare tools or jewels, yet he drops right into something different. He spots a young girl with long hair just sprawled on the ground, still as stone, like she's peacefully asleep. He can't believe his luck, he actually found a girl out here, and now he's freaking out, wondering if she just ran out of energy in the middle of the labyrinth. And the closer he gets, the more he realizes, her skin is spotless, not a single scratch anywhere. She looks so peaceful and beautiful that he can't help thinking she's a porcelain doll, right up until he's staring there. Her eyes snapped open out of nowhere, straight in front of him. He jerks back a little as the girl pushes herself up from where she'd been lying, and she just locks eyes with him, those huge bright orbs staring like she's trying to piece together exactly who he is. Alf is completely blindsided, blurts out how she's even alive, and demands why she'd be stuffed in a coffin to begin with then. Then the girl finally snaps her mouth open and speaks, and he starts probing, asking who the hell he is. Alf leans in close as the girl reaches for him, and the air turns razor-tight as the light suddenly snaps onto a jagged, odd blade, its edge peppered with holes. The girl clamps down on the weapon with white-knuckle force, and with her face swallowed by shadow, she steels herself for whatever hits next. She blurts out, half to herself, "So, how many months have really passed since a human last stepped into this labyrinth?" Then she stares him dead in the eyes and asks, "So, are you a winner or something else entirely?" Alf is drenched in sweat, stress screaming off his face as he blurts, "Who are you even?" But she dodges the question and instead orders him to hand over every last cent. She stands alone in the pitch dark, creepy labyrinth like it's her favorite place to be. Alf locks eyes with her and realizes her clothes are wrecked, torn to pieces, but still somehow the kind of fancy that makes no sense, and down here at the bottom of the abyss, a colossal prison rises, built to lock away nothing but sinners. The girl blurts that she's never once heard of a living person climbing down into this pit. Then she freezes, completely stunned. So Alf just locks onto her, drenched in sweat, while his mind scrambles trying to figure out who the heck this kid even is. He clocks that she's armed and his blood goes cold, and realizes this isn't something he can just walk away from, it's going to fight him every step of the way. Alf balls his fist tight, fighting the urge to snap into action, and tells himself to hold still for now, just play along and bide his time. And then he stammers, locking eyes with her as he scrambles to find the right words. Alf finally tells her the cash is right there, tucked in the pouch at his waist. Desperation crashes over him as he drops to his knees, begging her to spare his life, swearing he'll hand over everything he has. But she refuses to back down, driving that jagged blade right up to his face. She locks eyes with him, dares him not to move a single inch, and then she shoots her hand out and snatches the pouch, pinning him there the entire time. The girl barrels in, leaning hard over Alf and pressing him down so he can't move as she closes the distance. Alf shoots his hand up out of nowhere and clamps onto her wrist, freezing her mid-motion, right before she's completely blindsided. Her eyes fly wide when she realizes he isn't nearly as helpless as he pretends to be. Alf calls out her blunder and snaps, "You forgot, you never actually restrained your opponent," so he keeps the heat on her, smirking as he taunts, "So what, are you just some amateur who has no clue what you're doing?" The girl snaps, breaks into a sweat and screams for him to let go, then accuses him of being a thief. Alf locks eyes with her and snaps that none of this is going anywhere. Then he snaps, demanding to know who she is and exactly how long has she been trapped down in this pit. But she only winces, pure stress on her face, as she scrambles to make sense of what's happening. And finally, she straight up admits she doesn't even have the answers herself. Alf locks eyes with her, growling that she can't possibly be clueless about what's really going on with her, and he pins her hard to the icy stone floor, locking her in place so she can't move a single inch. Her curved blade is lying a few feet away in the dirt, cracked out of reach, totally worthless now. Alf scoots in even closer and makes it crystal clear, he's no bandit hunting her because. But then he drops the bomb that he's totally broke, so she's chasing the wrong guy like it's a lost cause. Towering over her, Alf glares and tells her she just threw away all her time and energy striking him for absolutely nothing. He locks eyes with her and tells her flat out to give it up already because he's clearly the one calling the shots, just staying cool as he watches her like, go on, make your move. She clenches her teeth tight and she lies on the ground in brutal silence, completely frustrated, trapped there like the world just froze. She locks eyes with him and it hits her fast. The man standing there isn't just familiar, he's a whole different person. The girl finally cracks and tells him her name, Lifia. Then Alf snatches his name back, admits he's brand new to being locked up, and finally says hi. Suddenly, boom, there's a savage ripping sound as the fabric tears apart into wild strips. Turns out Lifia tears her own dress to shreds, whipping up makeshift bandages right on the spot. Alf just freezes in place, totally lost on what she's even doing. But he snaps out of it, shoves his gaze aside, and starts wrapping the cloth around his arm to help. He stares down at his arm, those bandages are wrapped tight and neat, and Lifia wraps it up with a small, knowing smile and asks if he got hurt badly. Alf admits he's got nothing. No gift, no favor, not a single thing he can hand her back for what she just did. She shrugs it off and tells him, it's an apology for me thinking you were just some random bandit. Alf tilts his head up, flashes her a tiny smile and says thanks. Then he leans in and demands to know who she really is. Lifia looks beat down as she admits she's stuck in the exact same trap, just another soul chained inside this hole. She snaps her gaze to Alf and asks, did you end up here too, like an exile too? Alf doesn't dodge the truth, he blurts out, yeah, and then lays it on me. He was framed for murder. Curiosity claws at him as he asks, straight up, whether any thieves are lurking around the area. Lifia tells him, forget it. After all these corpses littering the ground, there's nothing else down there. Alf sounded rattled as she repeated corpses, but she still answered with eerie calm. Telling you the brutal truth, only around 10% of the people who get thrown into that pit are still breathing the moment they hit the ground. She adds that even if someone somehow survives the fall, the monsters usually catch up and tear them apart before they can breathe. Lifia locks eyes with a skeletal hand sprawled in the dirt, shocked, because living humans are almost a myth to her now. Alf freezes for a beat, trying to make sense of everything you just dropped on him about the pit. She stays put while she lays it all out, saying she's actually thrilled to finally meet someone alive. Then she yanks out those weird, mysterious fruits and slams them down right in front of him. Lifia snaps the modems out loud, then leans in and quizzes Alf, are you hungry enough to eat? Without a second thought, Alf shoots his hand out and snatches a fruit straight from the bunch, then bites into it. She leans in and swears the food is fresh, then casually drops that there's a real pantry tucked in the back. She told him, if you want, I can grab you some other stuff to eat later. Alf tells her it's more than enough for now, then, right on the spot, he thanks her for the meal before the moment carries on. He savagely tore into the food until all that was left on the ground were the bare stems. He tells her it was absolutely delicious, and Lifia bursts into laughter as she snaps, wow, you're a fast eater. Lifia demands to know if the food was really poisoned, and Alf admits he even flashed on the thought for a second. Then he stops like something just hit him. But he tells you the truth, he can actually purge a whole chunk of that poison out of his own system. And he straight up says his body is basically impossible to kill, like it shrugs off danger without even trying. Lifia stares at him, fear written all over her face, and demands to know if he's seriously planning to not die. So Alf shrugs it off, then shoots her a question, why is the food so fresh and can she show him around? She tells him, wait right here, then shoots her hand toward the wall like she's about to trigger something big, and the moment is about to happen. And the two of them freeze in place as a brutal burst of bright light floods the dark cave. Lifia's jaw drops when the wall suddenly erupts in light out of nowhere. A gigantic magic circle slams into the stone and erupts with blinding light. Alf stared at it, wondering if they'd just stumbled on some secret magic tool that could summon light. A tiny diamond-shaped crystal hovers dead center, blazing inside a blinding white glow. Ifja gazes down at it with a calm, peaceful smile as the light floods over her. Alf opens his mouth to speak, then shuts it again, because this whole mess feels insanely off. Lifia points out that the stone kind of drifts in the air when you hold it, she doesn't trust it at all, she's only keeping it for that eerie glow. But the second Alf catches sight of it, he knows, no doubt this cursed tool is real. He can't stop asking himself why a kid like her is lugging around something this dangerous and finally blurts it out, forcing a calm voice as he starts asking her about it. He blurts out, "Where did you even find a stone like that?" And she jabs at it, asking if he means that one. She snaps back that she just stumbled on it lying on the cave floor. She leans in and reveals the truth. Turns out that little twist was the key to the pantry door. Alf leans in and asks if she truly thinks that thing is the key, and Lifia just shrugs him off with, "Watch." She thrusts the stone forward, and it immediately starts pulsing, bright circular light exploding from it. Alf just stays silent as he watches her, but Lifia frowns and blurts out that it feels totally wrong because it's not opening the way it did yesterday, because the stone is still hovering dead over her hand. Alf closes in, leans in, and asks her, just let him take a quick look at it for a second, and the moment he snatches the stone, he tells her, face to face, that it's deadly dangerous. He explains, touch this before it's dispelled and it'll curse you, so she better stop being careless right now. Lifia asks if he's talking about breaking a curse, and he snaps back, no, it's about ending it for real. Exactly what he's talking about. He then lays it out. This is a special technique made to rip curses off people, basically flipping deadly stuff into something that won't hurt humans at all. Alf drops this truth. Back in Almalta, they warn kids about cursed magic from day one because those curses are deadly, and he points out the reason is crystal clear. Grabbing something like this barehanded is a terrible idea. Lifia just nods like, got it, I understand now. She can't stop herself. She blurts out where he even came from to know all this. Alf looks totally wrecked, fumbles for the right words, and tries to explain his situation. But he just shrugs it away and says it doesn't really matter, not right now. He tells her, don't worry, I'll handle this myself, then asks to borrow the stone. The second he grabs it, the thing erupts in a wild, blinding glow. Alf dug in and stood his ground as razor-bright beams started swirling around him, and that power flares into a glowing circle. Then it ripples through the air like waves spreading across water. Lifia's jaw drops at what she sees, and she blurts out that it's just breathtaking. Lifia stares in total awe as Alf reveals the glowing light isn't just pretty, it's the cursed tool's magic formula. He points out that when these things suddenly stop working, it's almost always because some hidden bug in the code is to blame. But he slides in close, locking his focus right on the moment. Eyes locked on the swirling energy as he hunted the source of the chaos. It slams into him instantly. One character is missing, and it sticks out like a punch in the dark. Alf knows the trick. Once you crack what happened, you just slam the missing pieces back in, and that's when it gets. But you've got to hit the exact spot where the break starts down to the tiniest detail. He spots the missing piece, the runic letter R, and starts summoning it into being so the rune snaps into perfect shape in midair while Alf stays locked on the stone, hand steady as a rock. Everything around them feels like it's buzzing with power as the magic finally crashes back into place. With the stone locked in place and blazing in their living hands, the two of them step out together, ready to move as one. Alf jolts his head up in pure relief and blurts that the path is finally open, so Lifia leans in and tells him he's incredible, while Alf fires up the truth and says he just patched the missing piece of the magic code. He lifts the crystal high in the air and tells the whole story with it, and swears the curse is dead for good, cutting off the rest, leaving out. Alf tells her it's safe now. Lifia snaps back with a quick, grateful thanks. She just freezes, staring at the glowing item like her brain can't accept that it's actually fixed. Alf fires back that it's go time because they've still got a mountain of stuff to handle, but he knows they're trapped deep in a labyrinth everyone swears is impossible to break out of. Still, he can't shake the legend, one guy who somehow made it back alive. Alf finally feels like the universe is giving him a break, and everything might finally start going his way. Meeting a girl like Lifia and hearing those stories about the thieves finally blows the lid off everything for him. Alf can't shake the feeling that down in this abyss, survival might actually be within reach. And then it hits him, the curse has locked in. The cursed items scattered through this labyrinth hold the key, so he figures these tools are his only shot, his one real clue to claw his way out of here alive. Right then, a giant clawed foot crashes onto the dusty ground. Whatever's moving out there is way bigger than you think. Alf and Lifia both feel the threat hit, whip their heads around, and snap into full guard mode as a savage beast snarls right beside him, flashing rows of razor-sharp teeth. A massive black wolf claws its way out of the shadows, staring them down like it's about to rip them to pieces. Back on the surface, Lord Valerius is right there, standing in the spotlight, ready to make his move. He's doing his inspection with ice in his eyes. He storms through the research lab until he finds that one workspace left completely empty, just waiting. He scans the room and fires a question at the director. Is this where Alf's desk used to be? The director rips into making a. He tried to butter up Lord Valerius, claiming work had been smashing him nonstop lately, and tells him the rest of his team is tied up and waiting, until every last case finally snaps into place and the chaos calms down for good. Valerius tells him he can finally head home for the night after his duties, and the director just nods along, until he adds that he can't. But he can't stop grumbling about all the trouble Al keeps causing. Seriously, it's non-stop. Has set everything into chaos for everyone who's been pulled into this. The director leans in and tells Valerius his future is already locked in stone, and hammers in congratulations as his family finally lands as permanent state curse breakers. Valerius just smirks, flashes a tiny smile, and lets out a heartfelt thank you. And he thanks him for saying that, until his eyes snap to a tiny glass vial left behind. He got left behind in Alf's dusty old workspace. He snatches it up and fires off a question to the director. Has this item been appraised yet? Or maybe this isn't the whole story. A shady smirk slinks across his face as he stares at the bottle with. He hurls the vial down and it smashes on the ground, exploding into deadly shards. Valerius looms over the wreckage, crushing the floor with dark fumes he drags up from the ground, while he just stands there and stares. With a smug grin, he says, "As far as I'm concerned, all cursed," then leaves total destruction in his wake. Everything stays the same anyway. He admits Alfred was the only one who really understood what was happening to him, so it always meant there was. He could always slip away and snatch his loot. So he scrambles to look innocent, swearing he just accidentally slipped an unappraised item into Alf's pile and he definitely didn't expect that guy to torch his entire life over it. Alf's left bound in chains, shattered while Valerius stares at the shattered glass and drops the line that Alf wasn't the worst friend after all. His smile screams snake, so he orders Alf to watch from the afterlife as he climbs straight to the top of the world. Meanwhile, out in the black woods, a hulking wolf monster lies dead on the ground, blood pooling beneath it like a gruesome warning. Everywhere while Alf and Lyphia loom over it, both of them panting hard, fighting to catch their breath after an intense fight erupts. Lyphia's jaw drops when she realizes it was a wolf, while Alf lets out a huge sigh of relief because he actually managed to take it down. Alf stares at his blade, realizing he'd already be dead right now if he hadn't had that knife in his hand. Then he can't stop thinking, how did these wolves even end up here? He starts asking if there's a secret somewhere, an underground passage nearby, right there, or maybe they didn't even come here by accident. Maybe someone just hurled the monsters straight down this hole, along with the other prisoners pressing in around him, while he's busy thinking staring straight ahead. She just stood there, clutching that blood-smeared weapon like it weighed 1,000 tons on her heart. She asked him what's wrong, but Alf snaps, "Stop to forget it," and after that, he says nothing at all until life right when you spot something moving. She opens her mouth to say something, but then she freezes dead in her tracks when she spots a huge, furry leg right in front of her. They stared in shock as a giant monster loomed right in front of them, and suddenly the two of them looked painfully tiny. Alf doesn't waste even a breath. He screams at life right here like he's about to make a promise. He's ready to apologize, but then he blurts out that he has to borrow her weapon. He lunges forward and snatches the knife from her hands before she can even blink. Then he clamps down hard on it and drops into a ready-to-strike fighting stance as magic circles flare to life, glowing and spinning faster by the second. Swirl around him as he braces to move. Alf's eyes flare wide when he finally understands what he's really got in his hands, and he blurts out. Claims that this isn't just any object, it's an ancient, cursed artifact. He plants his feet and thrusts the blade straight ahead, eyes locked in with pure, unwavering focus. The knife flares with this eerie glow and Alf's just left staring, because he can't believe it's really lighting up. Lyphia just stands there, frozen in pure shock, unable to even process what she's seeing and he can't shake it back when she held that weapon, it never once lit up like this. Alf locks eyes with the monster, and the ancient item's insane power slams into him like a thunderclap. And the moment the artifact fully awakens, magic circles slam into motion around the blade, spinning like they're about to tear the world open as a giant wolf rockets straight at him, but Alf doesn't blink. He just locks his stance and steadies as the monster throws open its monstrous jaws like it's about to rip him apart right this second. Alf steels himself and snaps that if it's charging straight at him, then fighting is the only move he's got. He leans in and admits the biggest thing he's ever truly hunted was a rabbit, but he's done playing around. He refuses to back down now. Ground as the giant wolf lunges in, jaws bared, ready to rip him in half while the monster's gaze clamps onto him and refuses to let go. On him, snapping the distance shut in a heartbeat. Alf launches his attack, hurling the artifact with everything he's got, and right then he starts whispering sweet nothings to the blade, begging it to be a good girl, until everything goes sideways. Then it leans in and goes, "So you're trying to make me let go." The wolf clamps down hard on the weapon, blood spurting. A torrent of spray bursts out as the metal bites down and vanishes into his jaw. Alf doesn't slow down, he screams out and slams all his courage into the fight. He leaned every ounce of his weight into that strike, and then finally, he drives the blade straight through the beast's neck, and the moment he finishes the swing, the monster fully collapses under the damage. He squeezes out one final burst of frustration. A furious shout burst out as he stared at the thing, utterly drained, soaked in sweat and barely holding on. Alf suddenly realizes he's trapped in. It goes toe-to-toe with a savage coyote, and that thing is so powerful it could tear his entire arm clean off. He knows he's in deep trouble, and he snaps that he can't keep letting this thing chew at him like this, so as the beast clamps down and bites his weapon like it's nothing, so he snarls at it, begging it not to swallow the precious artifact. Alf grunts through the agony and snarls at the monster to back off, shoving with everything he's got to drive it away. From the sidelines, Lifia watches it spiral out of control, and in full panic, she yells Elf's name at the top of her lungs. The wolf keeps shoving with every ounce of muscle, and Alf just barely digs in, holding his ground while the blade plunges deeper into the monster's mouth. He snaps at it to hold still already, but suddenly the whole moment goes wrong. Alf's face drops, shock hits, and he yells about that precious artifact as the whole situation flips in an instant. Lifia shrieks his name again as he gets shoved backward. The beast bares those massive teeth, eyes blazing like pure feral rage, and it looks ready to tear this whole thing apart. Alf's breaking point hits. He glares at the beast, snaps back at it through clenched resolve, and clings on as it tries to crush him. A brutal burst of light explodes across the whole area, magic surges in fast, and it just keeps pouring into the broken artifact starts to shift in front of your eyes, and the metal knits itself back together until it's brand new again. Alf can't even blink. He stares in disbelief and blurts out, "Wait, the knife just regenerated by itself." It snaps its teeth shut, still starving, still hunting for the perfect crack to slip inside. The huge beast planted its feet and locked eyes with the elf, glaring him down like it had no intention of moving. Alf wastes zero time, his eyes lock on, and he hurls the blade like a bullet. It shoots straight through the magic circle, siphoning up every last bit of that extra energy. The knife whips into the wolf's side, sinks deep, and rips open the wound. Blood bursts out. The monster staggers back from He looks way less confident, and it hits hard. Alf is totally wrecked, wheezing for breath as he scrambles too, and it took a second to sink in what just happened. He stands there, drenched in sweat, desperately forcing his breathing to slow down. With the monster sprawled and motionless on the ground, Liphius leans in, fires up the moment, and asks, did he really pull off the kill? Alf tells her, yeah, it's not moving anymore, then shrugs it off and adds, I'm doing all right for the most part. But Lifia keeps her eyes locked on the blade, saying those strange words were drifting around at exactly. Alf hasn't answered back yet. He's still scrambling just to keep his head from. Right then, he lunges forward and clamps onto Lafia's arm, yanking her into surprise before she can even react. He stares at her injured arm and demands to know if it's really all right after all that chaos. She's caught off guard by his question, then smiles and tells him, yeah, I'm doing fine. She drops her gaze to the spot where she was wounded. He winced, realizing that knife had been cursed from the start, and praying like crazy that it never backfired. Lifea looked absolutely wrecked, gritting through a sharp pain as she strained to handle the situation and make sure everything lands exactly right. Alf slams his hands together with a loud clap, jolting her back to the moment so they can finally get moving. He jumps in with an apology first, looking weirdly nervous as he braces to finally spill the truth. He locks eyes with her and finally confesses that the knife he's been wielding was stolen. He snatched the truth right off a dead body he just stumbled on nearby. Right in her vicinity, Lifea didn't see it coming at all. He breaks it down because this place it's basically a graveyard for prisoners who didn't survive, so he snatched it up not for comfort but to stay alive. Alf's face hardens as he finally clocks what they're really up against. Lifea asks what odd stuff happened while he held on, and he swears it all felt totally normal until he cuts himself off. He had to admit the blade's shape looked pretty weird, but he brushed it off until now. Finally, he couldn't hold back and asked her straight up if there was anything about that knife he needed to know. Lifea snaps Alf's attention, tells him to listen up as she stares at the blade and reveals it isn't just a weapon, it's an ancient artifact, a cursed tool from the past. She leans in and says it's a relic from a dead civilization. And the crazy part is, it's the kind of treasure nobody can even dig up without years of struggle. Mentioning that those ancient tools are notorious for carrying some seriously terrifying magical power. Alf's eyes go wide with pure shock, and he keeps blurting relic like he can't possibly wrap his head around it, and demanding to know if this isn't just some basic knife. But Lifea only sighs. She looks absolutely drained as she struggles to get her point across. She makes it crystal clear, this knife isn't just any weapon, it's insanely precious and worth far more than anyone realizes. And that's the crazy part, gear like this, it almost always carries powers far stronger and way more wild than any ordinary cursed tool. When she lifts the blade for him to see, she drops the bombshell. This knife's secret power is repair. He tells you it already comes with a built-in automatic power that lets the metal heal and regenerate by itself. Even if the blade shatters or gets wrecked, it just regenerates on the spot, and it never ever loses its razor-sharp edge. Lifea blurts out that a cursed tool that can literally repair itself is almost unheard of, and she's basically saying, that thing must have saved lives back then, so you know it was insanely valuable. Alf demands what she means by the past, and she snaps back that it was used more than 30 years ago. Alf's jaw drops, he can't believe it's really that old. But Lifea breaks it down. This is exactly why it's worth a fortune today, and tells him to hold on to it because it's spotless, no curse marks at all, so they can cash it in for a fortune once they're back. Lifea gazes at him and breaks into a warm smile, like she's truly grateful for what he just did. She thanks him and blurts out that he's genuinely one of the kindest people around, which makes Alf smile, because he tells her it's only a thank you for those tomatoes from earlier. Suddenly, something right nearby erupts in a blinding, insane glow. Alf freezes mid-stare, totally blindsided, like his brain can't even process what in the world is happening. Lifea reveals that this jewel has been passed down through her family for generations. Even though Alf knew it was an antique, getting a close look made it feel way more special than he expected. If he can tell whether this one's ancient and cursed too, Alf pauses for half a heartbeat, just enough to think. He tells her he's not 100% certain, but he's sure he can spot a cursed technique hiding in there. And he breaks it down. Turns out it's just a memory tool now that the curse is finally gone. Lifea thrusts it into Alf's hands and tells him straight up she wants him coming with her. She leans in and tells him, your power is straight up incredible, and if you stay, everything changes. He fights to find the perfect words, like every sentence is a locked door. He leans in and asks if she's only hunting for an escort, then shuts her down hard and tells her he's got zero interest. She shot back with a quick reply, eyes locked on him like she was about to spill the truth, no matter what. Lifea won't stop badgering him. She insists there's even a hidden safe tucked at the very back of her pantry. She promised she'd lead him straight to it, and he'd get to grab whatever he wanted from the stash. Alf locks eyes with her and reminds her he's living in exile, and that means nothing here is simple. Telling you straight up, staying close to him is pure danger. And there's not even the slightest promise she'll make it out alive. Then he flashes a small smile and admits he can't just walk away from a girl. A girl is stuck all alone in the dark, curled up in fear like the night has swallowed her whole. He tells her, I might not be much help, but then he adds, "If you're cool with it, I'll go with you." Lifea just freezes on him, stunned by his sudden change and almost instantly flooded with relief. So the two of them set off side by side, pushing deeper and deeper into the abyss's dark tunnels. Lifea points out that the road looks insanely nice and bright, thanks to his cursed tool. Alf just shoots back, "You're welcome," like it's nothing. As they stare in shock, the jagged cave rocks have melted away into smooth, man-made walls. Alf snapped his gaze around and realized this abyss wasn't some natural cave at all. Someone built it. He froze because a glowing diamond-shaped cursed tool hung there in the hallway like it was waiting for him. He points out that the air is surprisingly easy to breathe, and right there, man-made tools are scattered everywhere like someone dropped them on purpose. As they walk, Lifea suddenly spills her past, how bandits and coyotes tore into her village and left it in ruins. 3 times. She told them how she stayed alive by cramming herself in the pantry's back corner, waiting it all out until the danger finally passed. Alf leans in, hangs on every word of her story, and then tells her. It's honestly a miracle she even escaped that place alive, still in one piece. Lifea just shrugs it off with a grin, admitting she's gotten damn good at fleeing when she needs to. She stares at him dead serious, then finally snaps, "So where did Alf originally come from?" So he finally opens up and tells her the whole truth, how he crawled back from the abyss into the royal capital, and then the real reason he's down here, spitting out the truth that a friend ripped him apart and totally betrayed him. Alf looks wrecked as he blurts that he didn't even get a shot to talk it through. He just stood there locked onto the crystal, and admitted he ended up right here for absolutely no reason. He finally cracks and admits that in his old country he's been labeled a criminal, so even if he manages to crawl back to the surface in one piece, he's convinced he'll never, ever claw his way back to the life he used to have. They sit there in dead silence, and the weight of his story just crashes down on them. Lifea shoots her arm out toward him, eyes locked on his like she's ready to jump in and save the day. He still remembers being bound up, then tossed aside like he was nothing. She's like, no way he lived after that brutal drop from that high up, and honestly, it's insane. And Alf just stares at her, stunned that she'd go that far with kindness. Lifea blurts out an apology for that weird question, and Alf just shrugs it off, telling her it's totally fine. The crystal hangs in the air, hovering just in front of them, glowing softly like it's calling them closer. Alf stares at it and realizes, yeah, he's got it lucky because he's the one stuck handling it. Those cursed tools are back again, and this time they're not letting anyone off easy. Even though he can feel it in his bones, he's terrified he'll never make it back home. A magical tool hangs in midair, humming with a steady pulse of raw power. Lifea stands with her back to him, her long hair cascading over her shoulders like a curtain. Alf stares at his life today and feels the shadow of the dark future creeping in, back when he first imagined it all for himself. It feels like the road he's on is somehow lighting up, one step at a time. He keeps telling himself, if this light keeps burning and steering him ahead, then he's not lost. He's finally ready, pushing forward as far as they possibly can, and he moves at last. He sprinted straight for the exit. The two of them huddled all night in a cramped little shelter of scrap wood and stones, trying to ride out the dark together. Rustling noises burst from inside the cramped space as they finally start to shift and move around. Alphalitz lets out a shaky breath of pure relief, and he and Lifea crawl out of that tiny hole. He tells her he's just relieved they made it through the day, then leans in and asks if she actually managed to get any sleep. Lifea freezes for one beat, scrambling for the perfect words to describe that night. She felt safe under those warm blankets and with all of them keeping watch, but then that. But wait, there's way more coming. Alf blurts out that he's thrilled because the wolves were screaming outside like it was the end of the world, so it totally shocks her. She grips her coat like it's her lifeline, then whispers that hearing it all firsthand makes the whole nightmare feel way too real and way too scary. Standing off to the side as the weight of everything finally crashes down on them. Alf glances at her and you can see the price of that long night in her face as they gear up for what's next. Bring on whatever happens next. Alf suddenly clocks what's going on and blurts the big question to Lifea. Why in the world is she even down here in the first place? But Lifea suddenly starts to panic. she stumbles over every word like she wasn't ready to answer that at all. Alf catches her in the middle of that struggle and tells her she doesn't have to force herself to talk about it if it's too much. Saying she doesn't look like an enemy at all, he finally lets his guard down and shoots him a grateful thanks. She flashes him a tiny smile and swears she'll spill every last detail the second they claw their way back up to the surface. Alf just smiles right back, keeping the whole moment light while they lock in on the long road stretching ahead. He points out, no kidding, that they've already been trudging for 4 whole days. This endless labyrinth, and it just keeps going, and right here he can't stop asking the same thing. Out of all these paths, which one actually leads to a way forward? Staring at those same stone walls again and again, it feels like they're trapped in a never-ending loop. So Alfie decides to gamble everything. He'll cut right at the crossroads, right where he ditched his shield. Lifea leans in and says, "Let's head back to the pantry. There's gotta be a way out in there." Alpha nods and agrees. It's a smart move to backtrack the way they first came because he's got hope in his chest, thinking maybe today we'll finally crack it as they keep walking forward. He lifts a glowing crystal and lets it slice through the dark corridor, lighting the path while the two of them push deeper into the labyrinth's silent stone halls. Alf blurts out that after wandering around for a bit, he's finally come to the realization that this place is basically one massive, never-ending maze with no end in sight. They kept riding through the wilderness, waiting for bandits to jump out, yet none ever showed up. Even with the bodies of a handful of dead criminals scattered out there, they've still kept searching. Luckily, that pantry stash you showed him paid off, because they've got plenty to eat now. He has no clue what magic is working behind the scenes, but it keeps everything tasting fresh and perfectly preserved. As Al scans the walls, it hits him. This whole place reeks of a labyrinth built from cursed tools. I'm sure of it. If they spotted a coyote earlier, then there's gotta be a path back up to the surface nearby. And he suddenly realizes they aren't having. If you're struggling to breathe, that's because there's definitely a hole sucking in fresh air, so he's dead convinced that if they can just manage to track down that opening, do it fast, and they might actually claw their way out of here alive. They stumble into a dead end. Thick stone walls slam in front of them, cutting off any way forward. Alf tells Lafea they've come full circle right back to the spot where they first met, and the moment he says it, he can't help but think, this is exactly where it all began. He stares at the stones, replaying their journey in his head, and realizes there's not a single hidden pad among them. He just stands there, locked on the wall, desperately trying to figure out his next move. Lifeus pushes them to ditch this route and hunt a new branching trail, but Alf snaps, "Leave markers so we don't get lost now," but Lifea suddenly freezes and stares at that wall like she spotted something terrifying. Right. A strange glow suddenly ignites and starts burning brighter by the second, bursting out from the cracks in the old stone, like the past finally couldn't hold it in. Alf trailed Lafea deeper into the cave, locked on her every move as the shadows swallowed the path. He holds his tongue for a beat, just staring at her back, then finally blurts out her name, ready to find out if she's really okay. Lifea slams down onto the ground, then shoots him a small, mysterious smile over her shoulder while, as she thrusts her hand out and slaps it onto the rough stone floor, she starts groping for something, anything. She paces that dead end non-stop, slashing her gaze across every wall and scraping every inch of the ground like she's sniffing out a hidden secret. That's when the rock starts glowing, and tiny cracks rip open across its surface like it's about to break. Lifea locks eyes with the light, her expression burning with shock as it completely knocks her off guard. So Alp spots a glowing crystal shard floating in midair, and at that exact moment, he barrels toward her, asking what's wrong. Lafea yells his name and demands to know what on earth that thing is. Alf leans in, squints hard, and blurts out that it looks like they're actually catching real specks of light. Staring at the glowing cracks, Lifea couldn't help but wonder if those lights started popping up on the other walls as well. But Alf admits he never even bothered to check while, as they pushed forward through those earlier moments. Lifea freezes for a split second, then snaps Alf and grabs his attention, and pushing him to swear, did he really tumble all the way down here from the surface? Because he knows the route, she urges them to turn back and track down the exact patch where he touched down. So Alf flashes a tiny knowing smile, and he's all in, convinced it's totally worth the shot to go back there again. The stone corridors go deathly silent as they turn around and make their way back. They push forward shoulder to shoulder through the cramped dark corridors until both of them freeze and stare up. Alf blurts that this is the exact spot where he crashed down. They fought through the dark for a long stretch, and at last they clawed their way back to the exact spot Lifea wanted to see. Alf whips his gaze across the stone chamber and realizes the whole place is a dead end, so Lifea realizes this isn't just the hole he tumbled through. It's a real room carved into the structure while they keep trudging forward, and Lifea points out there's no secret doorway or hidden staircase. Alf nods like, yep, she's got it. They both freeze in place as a blazing pillar of light ignites right in the heart of the room. Lifea spots those glowing specks and realizes they're the very same particles from before, so Alf grabs the moment and decides to investigate up close. Energy whips into a wild spiral, and a blazing white glow floods the space like a flash about to explode. Alf leans in and watches every move, his face brightening as he finally starts to crack what the magic is really doing. He realizes it's exactly like the characters you'd spot inside a magic circle on a tool meant to light things up. Lifea leans in, thinking those shapes could be letters, and Alf snaps into action, scanning the whole room to figure out what they're saying. He spots the patterns on the wall and jabs at the floor right beside the entrance. Then Alf keeps tracking that. Glowing marks lit up the path, pointing to a dead-end wall straight ahead, and then revealing they also curled into the corner by the back entrance. So he drops to his knees, staring hard at the floor as the light spirals around him. It hits him in a rush, those letters are. They're popping up everywhere, like they're crawling in to wrap the whole room tight. Lifea leans in and asks if he's finally cracked the answer. Out of nowhere, Alf snaps her head up with a serious look and tells her he has. He says these characters are probably just like the ones from Cursed Tools, only now they're blown all over the place, and he realizes the only way to get it is to scan the entire room in one shot. His eyes snapped into focus as he poured magic into them, sharpening his sight to reveal what normal eyes could never find. Alf scans the whole chamber, the room on full display as his enhancement kicks in, eyes locked, no detail missed. Enhanced his eyes, then that's when everything clicked. The moment the truth hits, he freezes, staring at a magic formula that's been torn half to pieces. Alf realizes the magic flared to life before his eyes even opened, and it hits him hard what he's up against. Lifea leans in and asks if he really can crack the code. Then Alf bluntly tells her, no, I can't. He looks straight up confident as he smirks and says he's gonna take the shot. He's planted right in front of the glowing energy, eyes locked on it, and he's ready to spring into action. Lifea stays way back, then watches everything from across. Alf barrels across the room and slips right up to the wall. He rips open a notebook and starts cramming it full of sketches and notes, trapping every detail so nothing gets lost. Lifea leans in, asking if everything's truly okay. Alf flashes a confident grin and says, don't worry, it's all going perfectly. He points out that while most of the writing is either missing or outright wrecked, he can still read the words clearly, especially the ones that name the time and the places like from and to. Alf stares as the magic formula just hangs there, floating like it's daring him to blink. The air felt charged, and he knew, at this pace, something huge was seconds away from exploding. He's locked in, eyes glued forward, focusing. Every ounce of his focus got nailed to the glowing text. Lifea clocks his strange behavior and leans in, desperate to catch his attention. He shot forward yelling, hey, are you alright? But Alf is locked in his own universe, tuning out everything while he figures out. You'll be shocked, this isn't random at all, it's a naturally born mega magic cluster. It's the kind of power that can spark to life the moment it hits. He doesn't even need a physical medium to activate it, and that detail hits him like a trigger, reminding him of a flashback hits him while he's buried in studying those old books, packed with sketches of every kind of item, and he's still parked at his desk long after the campus lights should have gone out. Then his professor finally strides in, eyes narrowing at his non-stop energy, and asks, why are you still here when classes are over? But Alf just yanks his attention toward what he found, grinning as he blurts out the big news. That very day, a brand new ancient magic tool had been announced. The professor finally cracks why ALF's been trapped in that library for so long, and ALF blurts a huge yes before handing him the page with a breathtaking bracelet, so rare it's basically one of a kind, plus a gemstone made of something no human has ever seen before. Alf keeps tearing through the report, studying details like that incense burner with sharp, cool geometric designs, and there's this fancy chair that screams, I belong at a super expensive table. He can't stop grinning as the realization hits. Those ancient cursed tools have a dozen bizarre rules for how they work, and none of them ever make sense. That kid's a full-on nerd for this stuff. He's so excited that even just hearing about them sends his hype through the roof. The professor grins back, tells him he understands, and says the Reed family must be absolutely thrilled to have an heir like him. But Alf isn't finished. He drops one last bombshell from that day and the professor snaps, wait, what is it? A page dives into a teleportation device, revealing it isn't just fan talk. It's an actual artifact that really existed in the world. In some ancient civilization, long before anyone living could even imagine. The professor's eyes widen in shock because he remembers this is actually one of the world's 7 mysterious cursive tools that even ALF swears are the real deal. Alf totally freaks out, rambling that if someone had a tool like that, they could rocket straight to the ends of the earth. And it's the one prize every scholar is clawing for with desperation. That professor can't miss it. Alf is absolutely obsessed with cursed tools. Just look at him, everyone can tell, and it hits you instantly. And he laughs, saying Alf gives off Major, the type who'd grab any energy, whatever he spots on the road, and snatches without a second thought. Alf snaps, asking what he means, but his thoughts yank right back to that teleportation artifact he stumbled on and there he was, kneeling before that legendary device tucked deep inside those ancient ruins. Inside stone walls. He drops his gaze and zeroes in on that memory, gripping it tight, because that moment felt wildly intense as it played out. He tried to gulp air, still reeling from how huge his discovery was. He knows that if this device it's about to flip the whole world upside down, especially because he snagged it right here, at the very bottom of the abyss. The best place of them all. Now it all clicks. This teleportation device would explain those magic formulas all over the room. Trying to pin down the exact time and place for that trip would take an insane mountain of data. Alf finally clocks what saved them from getting obliterated when they were hurled into the abyss. And it's only because they must have smashed a teleportation device on the way down, straight into the labyrinth. Now it's obvious those people didn't really drop all the way down, they got yanked and teleported instantly. He flashes back to the other sinners they'd seen earlier, so many bodies piled up, and realizes not a single one of them had a broken bone. Then it clicks in his head, this whole imprisonment system is built to crush people just like this. And when Lifia glances at him with worried eyes, she asks if he's okay, so Alf flashes a tiny smile, tells her not to worry, and says she just has to hold on a little longer, because right after this, everything changes. While she lowers her gaze and quietly nods in agreement, he realizes the spell setup for the whole room isn't some quick job, it's going to take forever, but they were chained together like streams of wild magic text. Letters start popping in and vanishing instantly, and then, step by step, the next words begin to take shape. Alf rockets into work on but then it hits him, he has zero clue how many days this code is going to take to crack. But he's fully lost in the magic scripts, while Lifia just leans against the wall, watching him like she's waiting for something to snap. She steals a gentle smile at him and the relief hits her hard. He's finally here and she's not alone. The floor is littered with wild math and tangled diagrams, and Alf charges through it all, mapping every move with his stylus. He stays hunched over for a while, completely locked in, fighting to get every calculation perfect. Finally, he forces himself to stop, lifts his eyes, and looks completely wrecked by the mental strain. He scrawls one final symbol in the dirt, like he's sealing the whole story shut. Lifia is still planted right there, just waiting for the moment to strike, waiting for him to slam the job shut. Alf shouts her name to stir her awake, and she finally looks. She looked him in the eye immediately. She asks how he's holding up after all that, and he just stares back at her like he's got something heavy on his mind. Finally, I'm done with all that setup drama. Lifia jumps in to help, and Alf tells her he needs her to inspect something for him. He whips out a huge, blazing pillar of light and blurts out that it's a teleportation circle artifact, one wrong move away from ripping the universe open. The moment the ancient magic kicks in, the whole room erupts in light, buzzing with pure energy. Lifia locks eyes with the light, stunned out of her mind, and blurts out that it's absolutely, insanely amazing. She blurts out that she never, ever thought she'd stumble across something like this down at the very bottom of the abyss. Magic symbols swirl around them and the spell hits its peak power right at this moment. Lifia locks eyes with him and asks, "Are you really about to start this?" Alf clocks it instantly and confirms, then take them up to the surface. He brings up this wild idea: if everything goes. He hit the right notes, then slammed the spell and dropped them straight into the forest outside Ilmalta. Alf swings her gaze at her with a hard stare and fires a question. So, are you finally ready to leave this place? Lifia's shoulders are tight, but Alf flashes a confident grin that tells her, we're ready, let's go. Lifia locks eyes with him, then flashes the green light like a cue to start as they stand right in the middle of the blazing glow. A swirling circle forms and Alf tells her to just breathe easy. Then he cuts his sentence off mid-seg. He tells them to start planning their move the second they're out, and he adds that they're heading straight to his hometown. She glances at the dirt, smiles, and admits she's honestly psyched to see it. Then the spell finally hits, and the whole place detonates into a towering pillar of blinding light. Far out on the open surface, Zaid Vengus reined in his horse, then snapped his gaze back over his shoulder, back toward the stretching distance. His attendant catches him freezing in place and blurts, "What's wrong? Something up." Zaid's face goes unsure. He blurts, "It's nothing." Then he pauses like he's still staring at it, saying he thinks he just saw something. He blurts that he's sure he saw a streak of white light, but the attendant shoots it down as just your imagination. And then they're getting hit with appraisal requests all over again, from every neighboring country, one after another, like a non-stop wave. He trudged down the stairs with a grim stare, saying Alf and the others are the country's last shot at hope. A vicious wind screams across a frozen, rocky mountain pass, so still, it feels like nothing's ever dared to move. Two gigantic deer stood there like living monsters, towering over everything with huge antlers tower as they stand shoulder to shoulder in the snow. And right nearby, Alf and Life were there, waiting in the shadows. They're sprawled out on the frozen ground, still catching their breath after that wild ride through the light. Lifey is still out cold, her head sprawled on Alf's chest while he fights his way back to consciousness, and one of those giant deer suddenly steps in close, craning its head like it has to see the brand new thing that just popped into existence. The creature's heavy hooves thunder across the rocks as it charges in, needing a closer look. Alf finally twitches awake, and a sharp, pained groan rips out of him as the brutal truth of that hard ground hits like a wave. He snaps his eyes open and stares at the animal standing right there, whispering danger from staring him down like a loaded cannon, forcing him to blurt out, "What is even happening right now?" The deer locks eyes with him, those massive orbs wide open, and it looks absolutely stunned. Alf spots the animals and just like that realizes they're not a dream. They really made it all the way to the western suburbs. He whips around, yells her name, and tells Lafia to snap awake. Lafia finally snaps her eyes open and stares at him, then asks Alf, "Where did we end up?" And Ralph tells her out there on the outskirts of El Malta, and swears the teleport landed flawlessly. He steals a second to breathe in, then calmly scans the whole area like he's got everything under control. The moment his feet hit the ground, he breathes in and says the wind smells like summer. Right then, the fawns. And it clicks for him, yeah, they truly nailed it and popped back to the surface in the exact right timeline. Right then, sunlight finally blasts through. The sky split with a massive, blinding flash of light. It crashes over both of them as they sit there on the jagged rocks and Lifia tilts her head up, stunned by what she sees in the sky, saying the surface is blindingly bright. Alf glances over his shoulder with a gentle grin and says, "The sun is so brutally bright it's practically blinding you on the spot." He points out that it's been ages since either of them has seen any real light. Life here suits him perfectly while Alf just soaks it all in, letting the warmth sink into his bones. With everything finally back on track, Lifia locks eyes with him and fires off. "So what now? What are you gonna do with all this, huh?" Alf tells her that back in his homeland he's technically branded a criminal, so he's got to figure out a way to return and wipe his name clean. Then he flips the question back on her and demands to know her own plans, but Lifia hesitates hard. She opens her mouth to answer, but the words trip over themselves, so she just. Then loud, heavy footsteps slam onto the ground nearby, cutting off their conversation mid-sentence. A random guy with a lantern suddenly bursts into view and screams, "Who's out there?" So Alf and Lifia just lock up on the spot, staring in pure disbelief because there's someone else here with them. The lantern guy creeps closer, jabs his light forward and demands, "Who the hell are you?" Alf refuses to back off and demands who's there, and Lifia stays glued to his side the whole time. Turns out he's just a local worker, and this interruption has him seething. He storms back to work, slamming thick wooden posts into the ground with a brutal thud. The story cuts to a plain wooden house just nearby, and the two of them scramble inside to grab a little shelter. Inside, Lafia grabs a fresh set of clean clothes, checks every detail, and finally lets herself sink into a long-awaited break. Alf just stands there, totally calm now that the immediate danger is finally gone. He spots Lafia slipping back into the room and fires off, asking if she feels totally refreshed, and she tells him flat out she is, and admits it's been hundreds of days since she last had a real bath. Then her smile fades, she locks eyes with Alf and asks him straight up where they've ended up. Alf's face turns deadly serious as he kicks off the explanation about where they are. Turns out there's a hidden paradise in Brno, right east of the capital, protected and famous for its wild, breathtaking nature. Alf drops the bombshell that people are still digging up cursive tools even amid the shattered ruins all around. He then breaks down the rest of his journey and tells you exactly why. Turns out the cave they'd been hiding in wasn't a dead end at all. It was the actual exit for the teleportation circle. Jururu just happened to pass by, grabbed him, and hauled him in. Turns out that's how he wound up here. Alf freezes in place, realizing that getting out of the abyss would have been totally impossible without that artifact. And he realizes, holy hell, he was lucky to be alive at all. Lifia locks eyes with him and demands what he's plotting next, so he snatches up his card and tells her he's heading back to the kingdom. Then Alf snaps that he has to uncover what really went down during that whole incident. Lifia finally perks up, listens closely, and asks whether he's really sticking around for a few more days, but she tells him she's staying put, mostly because she's terrified of what might be happening out there. Alpha nods like he's fully on board, agreeing with her, and then he asks, is it cool if I stay with you a little longer? Lifia stares at him, completely blindsided, like her brain just skipped a beat. With a push from someone's suggestion, she darts her gaze downward for a split second, absorbing exactly what he's asking. At first she says nothing, just locks eyes with him and stares in deadly silence. Then she finally blurts out that he's probably got his own business to juggle, and it slaps the truth into his mind. Out there, the abyss is where criminals get dumped for a reason. Lifia admits it's brutal to pry into his past, but you can tell she's already digging for answers, thinking about what happened right there. Alf admits right there that back home he'd have been a criminal, so he can only throw his shield up for her for so long. She locks eyes with him, says she understands, and then but Lifia leans in and tells him she wouldn't really mind being his, so it hits him like lightning and leaves him completely stunned. Alf just freezes in place, utterly stunned, and he doesn't know what to do with himself after that. He finally snaps, what's wrong, and spots that eerie look in her eyes. Right as his elf stretches out a hand to ask what she's doing, he closes in, right before everything changes. Her most lifelike face just drops, blank and icy, like someone swapped her soul out mid-breath. She snaps, tells him to stop, and clamps her hands on his face, forcing him. She demanded he stay quiet as she locked eyes with him, her dark stare screaming trouble. Lifia scoots in way too close, eyes fixed on the skin of his neck, and murmurs that it's right here too. She locks eyes with him, face set in stone, and declares, no doubt about it, he's hers. At his wedding, the pressure is crushing him so hard it looks like he's seconds away from snapping and losing his mind. He blurts out that she should stop messing with him, but before he can finish, she fires back that she's dead serious. Tension snaps tight in the air and Alf starts to press her, asking what's wrong then. Jururu strolls right into the room, and boom, he catches the two of them staring around like they've got something to hide. Things get awkward in a heartbeat, so Alf starts blurting out apologies nonstop while Jururu just shrugs and tells him, it's totally fine. He burst out laughing and insisted, it's totally normal for newlyweds to get all hot and bothered like that. So Lifia stays ice calm, slips out with a quick excuse, and leaves Alf looking utterly wrecked and mortified. Once they're alone again, she throws out a casual question, so do you feel any more refreshed now? And Alf can't help but feel the shift. Man, getting to take that bath is pure relief. He can finally feel his fatigue draining away like it never stood a chance. Jururu whips his gaze toward them and demands to know all about their journey, then pushes for what they're planning to do next. Lifia jumps in first, asking right away if she can stay at the house a little longer. Alf cuts in, panicking a bit, and says he can't reach anyone, so he's got to push into town. He leans in and asks Jururu what's been happening in town lately, how things are really looking these days. Jururu leans in and tells him there's absolutely nothing weird or out of the ordinary happening. It's the same calm little country as always, nothing ever really goes down. He even drops this bombshell. He swears not one single story about a checkpoint getting attacked has happened in over 10 years. Suddenly, Jiraru panics, sweat pours down his face as he blurts out to Alf, "Are you really trying to start trouble?" Alf just shoots him a sharp look and reminds him, he's the one they found passed out on the side of the road. Alf locks eyes with Jiraru, feels the strange vibe right away and presses him like, did something actually happen? Jiraru shoots him a quick smile, shrugs it off like it's nothing, and tells him the truth. This place is usually calm, quiet, and harmless. Alf clocks it immediately. The guy has zero clue what's happening in the kingdom because he doesn't even recognize Alf's face, so he figures it's safe enough to bunk down at the house for a few days. Alf pivots the moment they meet, firing a question at Jiraru. Were you headed up to the mountain for work? He nods and blurts that he'd been out chasing a deer and somehow it dragged him deep into the woods, somewhere he hadn't been in ages. He finally admits he never saw it coming, just one moment and there they were, collapsed on the ground. Alf flashes a tiny smile and says, I see, but right after. Even Jiraru admits it. People really do drop dead inside that cave sometimes, and years ago they even unearthed another victim right in the same spot. Apparently, they always crash in with their clothes wrecked to pieces and gasping like they're one breath away from collapsing. Yuru tells them that every time they spot someone at that cave and ask where they're from, those people just clamp their mouths shut. He tells them this spot's basically a hunter-only secret, where deer slip in to drink water, and even if the house looks rough as hell, he tells Alf to step in like he owns the place and make himself completely at home. He insists Alf stays for now, no leaving until he's finally clawed his strength back. Alf tries to thank him for everything, but Jiraru shrugs it off, saying it's nothing. People are meant to help each other. The wood split straight down the middle with a thunderous crack as, while Alf spends his days outside the cabin, he grinds through a mountain of logs like it's his lifeline. He's locked in, grinding through the work with laser focus, then he quickly wipes the hair off his face like he's not got time to slow down. Swinging the axe again and again to tear into even more wood for the flames, and as he keeps going, Lifia stays right there in the shade, watching him in total quiet, like she's waiting for the next move. Lifia leans in from the side, watching Alf work, and blurts out that she never had a clue he could chop wood like that. Alf flashes a small smile and tells her, we had a fireplace at my place, so back then he was the one who had to drag and stack all the firewood, while his father stayed out of it. He stares out at the land, clocking one hard truth. When winter slams in, every village around here will be burning for firewood just to stay warm. Lifia stares at the towering mountains and asks, so, is his old home anywhere close to where we are now? Alf leans in and points out, wait, my childhood home isn't here at all. It's just a little farther down this way. Lifia's eyes narrow in thought as she takes it all in, then she calmly mutters, so that's how it is. Alf just stares at her, and for a beat the two of them sit in dead silence, his mind racing about how they somehow clawed their way out of the abyss together, like the impossible was never out of reach. But deep down he knows it. Right now the Duke's time is officially done. Alf breaks into a warm grin and tells Lifia he'll take her wherever she wants to go, because he knows every corner of the area, but Lifia keeps her eyes on the ground and murmurs a soft, quiet answer. She looks like her mind just vanishes for a second, standing there frozen and staring at the ground like it's the only thing in the world, and then she just stops. She glances up at the clouds, wondering how many years have somehow slipped by. It's been forever since she last saw blue sky. Alf just watches her, a gentle smile on his face, clocking exactly how hard she's locking in every single thing she's seeing. He says she can be pretty old-fashioned sometimes, and Lifia immediately shoots back, do you really think that? Before she sits there with her arms crossed, eyes locked on him, and then she drops a bombshell saying she was once promised to her fiancé. Alf freezes mid-action and whips his head toward her, totally thrown by what she just blurted out. He finally gives a nod and leans in, asking what the guy was like, only for her to go silent for a beat. Lifia stares out into the distance, then finally breaks the silence and tells you exactly who he was. Lifia keeps cracking open her past, spilling that her fiancé was selfish and violent, that he never saw her as a real person at all, just treated her. She treats her like she's just a thing, not a person. Then she tells Alf he was basically the worst guy ever, just gawked at her all day and it made her. She's feeling pretty crushed, and when she says guys always swear they're into women, you can hear the hurt in her voice. because what she's lived through has been nothing like that. The guy only ever bothered praising how she looked. She lowers her gaze with a sorrowful face while Alf just stands there, eyes locked on her, his serious face set as he leans in and listens to every word of her story. For a heartbeat, everything goes silent as Alf searches for the words, because her story hits him hard, and then he finally cracks his mouth to speak, but he pauses for a second, searching like hell for the right words. Alf looks her in the eye and admits he doesn't even know if he's into the way she looks. Then he pauses before blurting out that honestly, none of that matters to him. He stares her straight in the eyes like he's about to cut her off. He looks her right. He drives the truth straight into his eye, and then wraps it all up by saying that his looks alone definitely aren't going to finish the job. Oh no, not even close. He let his guard down and gave her a straight, honest answer, way more than she ever expected. Alf keeps his gaze nailed to the ground, letting the full impact of his truth hit like a punch, because this time he's not holding back. Lifea drinks it all in, nods with a gentle smile, and then thanks him for being so upfront with her, right before everything flips into chaos. He flashes a quick smile, tells her, "All right, time to go," and they finally set off back to the place. She looks shocked that it's already over, and then Alf just shrugs and points out the wood chopping is completely finished, so it's clearly done. Meaning it's time to eat. He tells her straight up that getting some food in her system will blast the blues away. Lafea just locks eyes on him for a second, like she can't believe someone finally paying attention to how she really feels. Her entire face loosens, a real little smile slips out, and for the first time she finally breathes easier as he took one last look behind him, then snapped around and charged ahead, cutting a path back across the field. The sun blazes over the mountains, casting a faint trail into a streak of blazing light tears through the grass, and before long, they finally make it back. Jururu rushes up, smiles at both of them, and hands over everything they'll need for the night. Yoru barges in with the food and tells him the soup is made from nothing but local potatoes and herbs. Yeah, just that. He's saying they've got paprika in the mix, plus a bunch of extra herbs, all tossed in to crank up the flavor. He tells them it's not much, but begs them to take some anyway as the sun sinks over. Across the cave entrance, Alf's mind races because that teleportation circle in the abyss slammed them right here, somewhere in Eastern Omalta. It hits him like a punch. He can't believe the fact that and somehow they escaped, alive and unbroken. Ever since they crashed onto the surface, they've been living with Jururu, but Alf can't shut off his thoughts. If that teleportation circle is still just sitting down there in the abyss, waiting like a trap, he's got to run and tell the kingdom, so they can rush people in to investigate it. That cursed thing is so massive it's basically a death weapon even when nobody's touching it, so yeah, he's pretty sure that once he's home, he can find a way back and snag it. Alf finally snaps to the truth. No matter what he's been through, the law still labels him a criminal, which makes everything messy. But for now, he just bites down and goes for another mouthful. One bite into the soup and Rafia's jaw drops. She calls it delicious, so I'm about to. So Alpha nods and tells them it's weirdly, shockingly good. And he cracks a grin, saying he's just relieved they both love it, while Alf keeps rambling on about how ridiculously rich and the meal hits tasty, rich, and mouthwatering, while Rafia turns right to Jururu and thanks him for it. Jururu waves them off, grinning, and tells them not to sweat it, because there's still plenty more coming for the seconds. A steaming bowl of soup rests on the table as they dive in together, heat curling up with every bite. Suddenly, Rafia's smile drops, her eyes go ice cold, and the whole room falls silent. So Alf leans in and asks what's on her mind, and she tosses back a clipped little answer like it's the whole story. Alf straight up admits that he's being completely. It felt like if he even tried to help in the kitchen, he'd just end up getting in everyone's way. Which makes Lifia side-eye him like she just caught him doing something suspicious. Money's on the line, so he starts stumbling over every word, and then scrambles to undo what he just said. Lafia refuses to drop it, and right there straight up asks. She fires back, so do you even know how to cook? The spoon clacks against the pot, snapping the silence, and he dives right back into his meal for a second round. After a moment, Lifia snaps his name out loud to pull him back, and he jerks his gaze upward, ready to see what she's demanding. She locks eyes with him, drops a look so intense it could cut glass, and demands to know what a paprika is. Storming out, Elf leaves completely. Stunned, he tries to wrap his head around it, she's not joking at all. He finally breaks it down, just a run-of-the-mill spice, and asks if she's really never heard of it before. Lifia doesn't answer, she just turns away and slips into her own head for a beat. When he clocks her reaction, Alf's body starts to sweat instantly. He knows something's seriously off. Jururu leans in and tells Alf, "As long as you're cool with it, I'll make as many as you want." He even says he can whip up all sorts of other creations. He just runs out of materials for the moment. He vows to grab even more supplies the next time he storms into the market, and he tells them to get ready because it's coming. Lifia flashes a gentle smile as Alf steals a glance at her, and for once they both look totally at ease. The two of them just stand there inside the wooden interior of the. Everything calms inside the house as the commotion finally settles. Then the moment cuts off mid-thought, like the story just can't wait to hit you again. And from up top you can see them snapping into action, lining everything up around the table, where the food and supplies were stacked and ready to be grabbed. Lifia halts for a beat, spots something that snaps her attention, and then she gets that curious look on her face, lit up like she was about to uncover something huge. A whole bundle of red peppers gets tied up and hangs from the ceiling, drying right there for everyone to see. Lifia demands to know what those things are, and Alf only glances at where she's pointing like he already knows. Alf flashes a huge grin and shoots her a quick nod like, "Yep, that's exactly what you're seeing." Alf explains that everything comes crashing down and hangs there. Hanging right there are paprikas, nightshade cousins that pack a little wild bite. And he goes on saying they dry them out first, then grind them into a fine powder. Because it's a chili pepper, he leans in and warns her that the powder comes with a spicy punch. Lifia flicks her hand and points to something else. He points at the potted plant nearby and demands, "So what's that one even supposed to be?" Alf leans in and swears it's a bay leaf, just like the dried one, thrown into stews to knock that gamey flavor right out of the meat. Lifia locks eyes on the leaves below, her face deadly serious as if something's about to happen, drinking in every word he just said. Alf just stands there with a tiny smirk, watching her sink hook, line, and sinker into the herbs. Lifia keeps mouthing bay leaves and paprika under her breath, like she's drilling the names into her memory. So Alf fires off, "Wait, this is seriously the first time you've ever seen stuff like this?" She flashes that answer and clutches a pepper in both hands like it's pure treasure. Lifia's face lights up with real joy as she listens while Alf talks about the plants. She glances back with a calm, gentle smile, savoring the peaceful hush right up until Alf clocks the shift on her face and blurts, "What's wrong?" But she can barely squeeze out a single word before then boom, one massive thud slams through the room, knocking them both completely off guard. Both of them just freeze in place, like the world stopped moving, staring at the floor frozen in shock because Jururu suddenly crumples, slams face first into the wooden floor and just lies there. Lifia blurts his name in pure confusion as Alf shouts for him and charges in to help. Later, Gururu sprawls in bed, groaning hard as he finally drags himself out of sleep. So Alf leans over and asks if he's finally awake, while he sits there by the bedside. A voice pops up nearby, asking if it really is him, and Jururu shoots back an apology, admitting he face-planted like that. Alf checks in and asks if he's okay, and Jururu grins and says he's feeling better now. Alf blurts that he's just relieved it wasn't anything serious. Jururu flicks his gaze aside and blurts out an apology for scaring them like that. When Alf asks if this has been happening for ages, Jururu shakes his head and snaps, "Nah, not really," explaining that he only started collapsing now, and then during the past few years have felt like a storm brewing. He flashes a tiny smile and says he's just relieved, because it's Alf. Stepped in right when he needed help. Alf takes it all in with a sharp, serious stare, then just nods and says, "I see." Then leans in and asks if there's anything at all they can do to help him out with this. Jururu tells him it's nothing serious and that after sleeping he already feels way better. He gives him one last reassurance that he's totally fine, while Alf just stares in silence, like they're both waiting for the next punch to land. Jururu pushes through the awkward silence and tells Alf to stand up and start cleaning, but Alf isn't ready to drop it. He lunges out of nowhere and grabs Jururu's shirt. Jururu gasps in shock as Alf yanks the fabric aside, and right on Jururu's skin, a tangle of dark, swirling markings erupts into view. Jururu snaps his head back, eyes wide in terror, sweat pouring as he finally realizes his secret's out. He scrambles to cover himself again, but the damage is already done. Alf locks eyes on the marks, swears they're a curse, then blurts out. He shoots the question, Is that really the reason Jiraru always keeps his distance from everyone else? Jiro just crumples there, shattered to the core, while Alf locks his gaze on him like he's trying to figure out what's left. The room instantly goes silent. Alf stands there holding his breath, waiting for the man to finally spit out whatever he's got to say. Jiro twisted in close. He steps in close, eyes wide with pure panic, and begs Alf not to spill his secret to a single soul. His voice blasts louder through the house as he keeps begging everyone to shut up completely and give him total silence. Jiraru takes a breath, steadies himself, and starts spilling the truth. This whole disaster traces back 10 years. They replayed how they'd heard about a bear skulking near the mountain. Then they bolted out with their friends and the military police. They tore through the search for about 2 hours, then finally spotted the animal, so they bolted after it and chased it into a whole new area. Alf leans in as Jiraru reveals the bear they found that day was unlike anything they'd ever seen before. It was a nightmare of a monster, skinned in dark curse marks that writhed like snakes across every inch of its body. Jiraru swore he'd never, ever laid eyes on a beast like that in his whole life. And even though the villagers and the police teamed up and went hunting, fully determined to take that thing down, everything went sideways the moment it was supposed to go right. Standing his ground against that massive monster with his team, Jiraru finally snaps, realizing he was way too naive about what they were truly facing. Jiraru glances back on the hunt, reliving how him and his crew stayed laser-focused on the target from start to finish. Then it all turned to chaos as the monsters sliced through them, dragging a wave of pure darkness with every strike. It goes on to say the bear still slipped out, but the damage was already done. Alf's hand was burned into everyone's eyes and he swears his arm. It used to be tough enough to take an axe, now it's just a shattered wreck. On top of everything going wrong, he admits the curse mark isn't only his, it's contagious and it can spread to other people. Then panic hits. He realizes he can't let a doctor lay eyes on that bruise, so he makes the brutal choice and takes the hit himself, to pack his family up and shove them off to a whole different town. Alf stays silent for a beat, then points out that back in the kingdom, a bruise that bad isn't bad luck, it's a death sentence, so they execute whoever's got it. Guru nods like, yeah, that's exactly why I spent the last 10 years. Tucked it away from the entire world. He stares at the marks on his skin and frets out loud, terrified that Alf and his friend are going to catch his curse too. He blurts out, "I'm sorry," and starts apologizing right there, looking like the guilt is swallowing him alive, convinced he just dragged them into danger. Then he locks eyes with him and snaps, "The kid, he looks exactly like my son." He just couldn't stand the idea of leaving him out there by himself. Old roses from jars and dusty books crowd the shelves of that tiny, cramped room. As Alf flicks through the collection, Lifia calls his name from her seat, and he immediately halts, turning to ask what's on her mind. She can't shake the question, what kind of infection is this? And she wants to know if those curse marks can truly jump to animals and when Alf confirms it, she lays it out plain. Any animal that so much as brushes a cursed tool is doomed to end up infected with it. Lifia presses for answers, asking whether the curse can leap from animals right back into humans, because that's where the real nightmare starts. Alf blurts out a university study that's got him staring like it just hit him. But he quickly admits he's never witnessed it firsthand, because finding cursed animals is so rare it almost feels impossible. He snaps his gaze away, cutting her off and reminding her that he's not. He's always been locked on researching the tools, not the people trapped in them. And Lifia finally shuts her mouth, soaking in every word like it's a warning she can't afford to miss. She catches his face twisting, blurts that he looks absolutely terrifying then. Alf just shrugs and says, "I've been stuck on one thought, 10 years is forever, especially when you're living like that." Alf suddenly realizes there's a specific report he flat out missed back then, and he can't ignore it. And he just quietly nods along, then keeps hunting for answers. Lifia leans in and asks, "Is Gyurusen really in deep trouble, like genuinely bad?" In a grim spot, Alf leans in and tells her the disease isn't new. It's been lurking for ages. So it hits him, he freezes for a split second, fully getting it, but then he realizes the catch. Curse marks usually don't show up until someone grabs a cursed tool right in their own hands. He decides he has to track down exactly what Gyurusen touched to leave him like this. Just nods along, making him feel like he's totally right, like there's no doubt at all. Alf rockets back to the old library, scanning every dusty corner like it's hiding answers. Lifia keeps her eyes on him, as he busts out his craft on the shelves and her eyes go razor-focused, pure seriousness as she keeps pushing forward. Outside, the moon blazes high above the drifting clouds, and the whole night stays eerily silent. The whole night goes still, and the stars blaze over the house's roof as, inside, Jiraru stays up past midnight, staring out his window like something's about to change. But something's slithering through the tall grass nearby, keeping its eyes locked on the place, and then it charges in, a giant wolf with glowing marks blazing across its whole head. The beast locks in on its target, poised like the next second is about to explode into action. Right then, the sky ripped open, and a wall of heavy rain started hammering the roof. As Jiraru tosses and turns in his sleep, a groan tears out of him, pure, unbearable pain. Lifia stands at the window, stares down the storm, and whispers as the rain hammers the glass. A voice suddenly cuts in and asks, "It's been a while, huh?" And she snaps her head back. The voice finally sees the rain again, and right then it stops and wonders, how long has it really been? Lifia snaps her gaze back and drops the truth. Turns out it was sunny just yesterday. Remember how the laundry somehow dried at lightning speed in that scorching heat? She can't help but wonder if the weather keeps stuttering back and forth just because they're tucked so close to that mountain. And when she stares out at the storm, she shrugs like, "I don't mind the rain one bit." Alf just lets out a small, calm smile as he listens to her talk. Then he turns to where he's resting and asks her, "So, how's Jiraru holding up?" He's stuck it out for now, but he can't stop groaning in pain. The curse mark on his arm keeps tormenting him. Pretty shaken, she blurts that it all happened so fast, and she's sitting on a knife edge, absolutely terrified for him. She tells Alf that Jiraru swears he knows nothing about any cursed tools, and Alf just takes that in. He hurried to check every corner of the house, but the pounding rain outside kept scrambling his plans and slowing him down. Rain still hammers down, and as Alf says it himself, he searched the kitchen and storage, no cursed tools anywhere. And then he brings up the real kicker. Jiraru can't even remember grabbing anything suspicious lately. He leans in and growls that the guy hasn't bought a single new piece of equipment in years, like he's been stuck in the same old gear for ages. So he leans in and tells Lifia how his curse mark keeps pulsing like it's about to burst, like it was. He freezes, sensing the air like a warning. He knows he'd spot a cursed tool nearby if one existed, but it's totally off, and the only thing that makes sense is that something hidden is driving all of this. Lifia nods and backs the search, and Alf wastes no time. He slips out to take another sweep around the area. Then, right out of nowhere, a strange pulse of magic starts crackling in the air like lightning. A blinding surge of energy slams into the ground right dead center in the middle of the field, casting flickers of light that ripple outward through the pounding rain, across the shadowy hills that loomed nearby. Tiny magical symbols snap into existence in the storm, then vanish into the rain like they never existed. Alf stands frozen by the window as rain batters the glass, his mind replaying that insane flash like it won't let him go. Lifia rushes over and shoves a blanket into his arms, and he blurts out thanks as he grabs it. He urges her to go on, hit the bed and get some sleep. No need to wait up because he's to stay awake through the night and keep a razor-sharp watch on Jiraru the whole time. He studies the dark room with grim focus, barely moving, as if he's waiting for something to explode out of the shadows. Outside the storm, the rain is going wild, slamming onto the ground like it's trying to tear the world apart while this huge, pitch-black shadow starts sliding through the fields near the house. A gigantic monster just looms there, soaked in the downpour like it owns the storm. Then out of nowhere, its eyes ignite with a sickly, creepy glow that cuts through the dark. Inside, Alpha stands like a guard dog, tall, tense, and fully locked on, ready to tear into whatever's coming next. Jiraru clocks that Alf is acting weird, leans in, and asks if something's wrong, but Ralph just shrugs it off and tells him, it's nothing. Jiraru glances outside at the sky and says the storm's getting brutal, and Alf jumps right in to fully agree. The older man leans in and drops the truth. When it's pouring this hard, you should absolutely steer clear of the rivers and the mountains. Alf stays calm and nods, that checks out, then dives into the fruit like he means business. Jiraru apologizes to the kid for keeping him up so late, but Alf cuts in and tells him, don't worry about it. He tells them, I'm doing the bare minimum, I just can't ignore how Jiraru let us stay there in the first place. Alf snaps to the truth, if Guru hadn't stepped in, he and Lifia would have still been trapped out here, drowning in this mess. He locks in on the task at hand, and a long, thin ribbon of fruit peel drops onto the table. Alf is showing off insane knife skills, slicing through it clean and perfect while she's got the whole thing handled on. He finishes up, places the fresh slices onto a wooden plate, and gets them ready to serve. Guru watches Alf work with that knife and says, "Not bad, you're actually pretty handy," and Alf only grins like, "My mom was." He was always sickly, so he had to pitch in and help her constantly, and that's what sets everything in motion. Leads. So Jiraru storms over to him, checking his arm and asking if it's still giving him trouble. Alf admits he's feeling way better now than he was before, and Jiraru says he's relieved to hear that, but his face still screams that something's heavy on his mind. He freezes for a beat, staring dead serious, scrambling to find the perfect words to say. Finally, he asks if Alf is some kind of town doctor. Alf shuts that down with a straight no, and then he breaks it down and admits he's just a traveler passing through, and Jiro instantly gets awkward, then blurts out whether Alf has a wife and a kid waiting for him in a whole other town, but he snaps himself shut fast, cheeks burning with embarrassment, and just nods along with Alf's words, like he can't afford to say the wrong thing until he finally blurts out, "Wait, is it?" If Alf, scared the curse mark is about to latch onto him next, that fear will hit like a punch. He points out that since they're trapped in the same house, there's a shot Alf can snag the mark then Alf could catch it too. Alf tries to reassure him it'll be okay, but Jiraru cuts him off instantly, telling the kid that the usual stuff for colds or regular wounds won't touch a curse. Alf doesn't let the conversation die. He leans in and demands Jiraru swear he's 100% certain he never laid a finger on a cursed tool, because since Jiraru answers in a flash, he tells them his family's doing great, and says no one's ever even caught a sickness from tinkering with tools around the house. He glances back at Alf, face weighed down, and tells him that with the curse mark's symptoms it was a sickness everybody in these parts knew, so the moment it flashed on his skin, he instantly recognized it. Alf goes stone still and listens as the man hammers out a grave warning. Everyone keeps saying there's no real way to know if a curse mark like this will ever fade, or if it's going to stick around forever. Because it's contagious once someone gets it, they're stuck in the dark, no clue if they'll ever return to work or even when. Which really messed him up. Jiraru even admits he was so terrified of the rumors that he never dared to see a real doctor about it. Alf takes it all in, locks eyes with the man and just says, "I get it." But inside, something's burning hard and he can't hide it. He sinks into his own thoughts, realizing he's been completely alone for years, cut off from his family this whole time. Lifia stares back on the moment she found them, telling how she slipped out for her usual hunt, right up until she'd have to be the one to finally bring that bear down someday, no excuses, otherwise. Jiraru refuses to believe anything will ever change. He still remembers being trapped in bed the first time that monster clawed up outside his window, just staring him down through the glass, those glowing eyes blazing at him while the storm raged all around. The creature's massive paws crashed into the ground, shaking everything with raw, brutal force. Standing there like a nightmare in the storm, rain hammering down on it nonstop. Alf stays laser-focused, drinking in every detail as the story explodes around him. That beast's snarling face, lurking in the dark, burned itself into everyone's mind. Alf blurted out for clarification, demanding to know if this is the very same bear that tore into the village, because if it is, they're in real trouble. Jiraru steps in and makes it crystal clear. Dead serious, he swears he's never seen a monster that huge in his entire life. Alf's hand suddenly clamped shut, like it was ready to crush the world. Tightens his grip on Jiraru's sleeve with bone-deep force, like he's daring anyone to underestimate him. As the chilling image of that terrifying Darkford monster blasts into the silence between them, Yoruru's panicking hard, sweat pouring down as Alf's intense stare pins her in place, and Alf leans in and demands straight up, "Do you remember exactly what you did to that bear?" Completely thrown off, you can't help blurting, "What in the world got into you? What changed all of a sudden?" Alf doesn't give him a single breath, coldly pressing him like, "Just answer the question." Jiraru blurts out his explanation, saying they were only trying to stop the beast from reaching the town, and he rants about how the village men kept firing at it while the military police stood there with bayonets fixed, and then he even swung his own axe once. Even when the axe struck true and the bullets tore through, the monster didn't so much as flinch, it just kept charging. And Jiraru slumps and looks down like it's over, mumbling that he and the police barely escaped with their lives. Alf leans in, listens to every word, then just says, "I see," like he's locking onto every detail. He says that the curse mark flared up the moment everything ended, and ever since then, Jiruru's been stuck in non-stop, bone-deep pain. But then he blurts that the bear must have been in pain the entire time too. Jiruru's like, "Wait, what do you mean by that?" And Alf snaps, then starts laying out the whole situation too. They tried to make him see it. This bear isn't just some mindless monster. Yeah, and it's also a victim. Jiruru just stands there frozen, mouth agape, staring like he can't believe a word he's hearing, right as the next part starts to hit. Realizing that what was happening right now might be a long-buried grudge pulled straight out of what went down back then. Alf drops his gaze, hair swallowing his face, and keeps talking under his breath like it's a secret. He tells them if Jiruru has been stuck with this for 10 brutal years, then it. So yeah, this means that Bear has been trapped in the same crushing nightmare for 10 straight years. Alf pushes forward and insists that the guy who owns the cursed tool that tortured Jiruru, yeah, he doesn't just get off easy. Alf says he actually has to thank him. In the middle of the pouring rain, this massive bear towers up, and those strange markings on its body blaze like they're on fire. Jiruru is completely unraveling, eyes wide, nerves on fire, as wild magic energy starts exploding around them, but Alf stays locked in, eyes burning with purpose, standing dead center in a colossal magic circle as he gears up to strike. Alf shouts the spell and hurls a massive blast of energy right at the beast. The bear bellows as the magic slams into it, the roar slicing through the pouring rain while the water keeps hammering down, soaking its thick, tangled fur without mercy. The moment the spell bites down, everything starts to blaze with light, slowly smashing apart the very thing that held the curse together. On the muddy ground, a busted tool lies abandoned in the grass, getting drenched by the storm, and Jiruru just freezes there with his mouth hanging open, stunned out of his mind by what Alf is actually doing. Alf yanks up his sleeve, checks his arm, and finds it totally clean. The mark is vanished, and he freezes for a heartbeat, soaking up the eerie calm now that the chaos has finally died down. Jiruru is locked in a stare at staring at his arm in total disbelief. He couldn't believe it. The curse mark was really, truly gone. He whips his gaze to Alf, blurts out "Big bro," and tells him with pure gratitude that he just saved them both. Alf flashes a small smile and just shrugs it off, saying he only did what he could, like it was nothing and he's not trying to brag. He leans in and tells Jiruru, "The best part is you finally get to turn around and go home so you can see your family again." Guru nods, then the vibe turns deadly serious as he leans in and says, "Yeah, there's something even more important we have to handle right now." He whips around to that massive, heavy sack they've been hauling, sitting right there on the floor nearby. With sheer determination in his eyes, Jiruru dives his hand into the bag and searches for the exact thing he wants, right up until he yanks out this battered, flat, rectangular tool like it's been through hell and back. Jiruru lifts a tiny metal plate he snagged and leans in, grilling Alf with one urgent question. "You know what this is?" Alf locks onto the object, squinting hard as he tries to pin down what kind of metal it is. He clocks it instantly. The plate isn't made of any normal copper or iron at all, and that weirdness hits him like a punch. It's made from the same stuff as his axe, sure, but the energy coming off it feels totally different. As Alf rolls it over in his hands, he leans in and says one chilling thing. There isn't a single curse mark on it. Alf says he's picking up on what's happening, but Jiruru can't hide his disappointment. He really thought Alf would figure out more about it, but he barrels right past it, grinning, saying he wants to use an Alpha favor as thanks for getting him back on his feet and healing him up. That brutal bruise on his arm. He tells them how he first stumbled on the plate while tearing through the warehouse, digging up anything useful he could find. And he was secretly praying Alf could pull it off. Snatch it, sell it off, and cash in fast. Alpha agrees because Jiruru has been taking care of him the entire time, so he leans in and asks where he needs to go. Alf gives a sharp nod and tells Jiruru, "You're right, this is exactly what's going on." Jiruru points out that the shops nearby are selling metal plates with offers so ridiculously cheap they feel suspicious. And he tells Alf to sprint down to Il Malta, the town sitting at the foot of the mountain, because the market there is absolutely massive, and they actually have real appreciation for this kind of thing. He's pretty sure they'll come crawling back, paying a brutal high price for it, the blazing sun hangs over the giant city of Il Malta, flooding the valley below in golden light. When Lifea finally reaches the overlook, she can't stop herself. She blurts out, "Wow," just staring at the breathtaking view. She leans in close and blurts out, "Look at the city from up here, it's stunning." They're catching how crisp and clean the air feels, and straight up calling the whole area a downright lovely place. Alf peers over the rooftops and asks if this is the first big city ride she's had in ages. She just shrugs and says she's only seeing things. Lifea drops a brutal truth. It's been years since she's seen the world above ground, and she's finally telling you why. Seeing the scenery like this lights her up with pure excitement. She blurts to Alf that she has to thank him for everything. She still can't believe this view is actually real. Alf just grins and casually says, "Guess the weather finally decided to treat us right." And he's praying that slipping away like this will finally scrub the noise out of his head. Gazing over the valley, Alf leans in and asks, "You ready to go?" For a split second, Alf looks dead serious as he stares out from under that hood, but he doesn't get distracted for a second. He locks onto the road ahead and pushes straight toward their destination. They burst into a massive stone building, looming like some kind of terrifying institution, and kids everywhere sprinted toward the doors, panicking like the escape clock was ticking. Alfin just keeps marching through the city streets, like he's fearless enough to outlast every shadow. City streets blur as someone lurks nearby, watching everything unfold. Lifea spots a whole swarm of kids running wild and blurts out exactly how many there are. Alf tells them straight up, the kids aren't in trouble, they're just being quietly watched while their parents are stuck working. He leans in and tells her that the kids roaming around like this, every single one she's seen, comes straight out of the monastery. Lifea's cheeks burn with embarrassment as she blurts out an apology for asking a question that's way too weird. She admits it, this giant city has so many secrets she still has no clue how to handle. Alf flashes her a warm, reassuring look and says, "I grew up right around here," and then she can just fire off any question she wants, every curiosity right to him. The two of them stride side by side down the cobblestone road, like they've got nowhere else to be. Alf clocks that Lifea's gone painfully quiet and his gut twists, something's definitely wrong, so he can't help wondering if she's finally starting to feel at home in the city. Alf's eyes look deadly serious under that hood as his mind starts racing over what's happening. He realizes he never planned to end up back in Almalta, but somehow, someway, this detour lands exactly where he needs it. Lifea tilts her head up at him, grinning wide, and asks if he really grew up right here. She looks genuinely intrigued and leans in, asking him to spill everything he knows about the town. Alf flashes her a warm smile and promises he'll be thrilled to break it all down for her. Spilling the truth, Ilmalta isn't just some city, it's the biggest one in the whole region. It's a massive trade hub, so it's basically non-stop, always packed with travelers coming and going. And because they're right by the water and the woods, they trade in like fish, wild greens, and animal pelts. It's that kind of place where tons of young people flood in, praying they'll hit the jackpot and finally make it big. Lifea finally clicks, and the moment she realizes why the streets are packed, everything suddenly makes terrifyingly perfect sense. Alf slips through the loud market streets with a quiet, low-key stride, staying out of anyone's eyes. He can't stop grinning, picturing how Lifea is seriously the best girl alive. Even though he's bombarded her with a million questions since the moment they met, she just keeps following him, no complaints at all, and keeps her eyes on him like something about to happen. Looking back, it hits him like a punch, right back to the moment he got cast down. As his eyes sharpen, finally locking onto the truth of everything he survived. He ruminates on how this city pinned a crime on him he never committed, and somehow it still tugs at his heart with nostalgia. With his hood pulled tight, he made sure nobody in the crowd would ever spot who he was. He was just relieved he managed to catch the date while they were still at Jurorus. Realizing it's only been 3 weeks since he got hurled into the abyss. Now they're going to sneak through the kingdom, hunting for intel, all while staying invisible to the military. Alf realizes the most important thing right now is to vanish in plain sight, slip through the city so nobody even looks twice at him. While they keep walking, he replays a brutal conversation in his head. Turning back to the kingdom isn't possible because it'd be ridiculously too difficult. He still hears that man's icy words, everything was fixed from the beginning, so no explanation, no defense, not a single argument would ever matter. The memory snaps to someone turning their back, whispering that their father's gone for good, while Alf's razor-sharp eyes lock onto the past like it's still there. And just like that, he snaps back to the present, Lyfia's walking beside him, looking drop-dead gorgeous but completely upset, lost in her own thoughts. He reaches for her hand and squeezes it gently, offering a burst of comfort as they push through the chaos of the busy streets. A sudden sharp snap yanks Alf out of his dark spiral when Lyfia blurts his name at. He quizzed him about why he looked so crushed, but he shrugged it off, insisting he was fine and trying to sweep it under the rug. He flips the question right back to her, pressing, "Is she really comfortable being jammed into that packed crowd and just?" She finally admits it. She's honestly shocked to see this many people packed into one place. Lyfia whips her head around the bustling city, then grins and says it all feels brand new, saying it's way better to have a little buzz like this than to just rot at the bottom of the abyss. Alf flashes her a tiny smile and tells her, straight up, that he finally gets exactly where she's coming from. He tells her it's honestly a breath of fresh air hearing her say that, because she almost never talks about herself and they. Then that comment hits Lyfia like a punch to the gut, and she goes totally speechless for one stunned second. Alf keeps pushing forward, insisting he can't stay trapped in who he was. Then a guy nearby clocks the luggage he's carrying and asks what it's for, and Alf says it's meant for Mr. Ulf Güller. For a split second, tension flashes across his face, then he snaps back into calm and tells the guy, "Don't worry, we've got it covered." With the wrapped package clutched tight to his chest, he swears he'll keep it safe, then lowers his voice, quietly begging the guy to stop saying his name over and over. The guy vows he'll be extra careful from now on, and Alf shoots him a grateful nod before they dive into the crowd. With that mess finally taken care of, Alf turns their gaze forward, itching to jump into whatever comes next. Lyfia pushes to hit the pawn shop next, but Alf slams the brakes and tells her they've got to knock out their other errands first. So she just nods along, and admits she's seriously hyped to see the place later. They finally stumble onto a shop with a creepy jar sign jutting out front, and the second they step inside, the whole place bursts at the seams, box stacks piled everywhere, and messy notes scattered like someone panicked mid-mission. Inside the glass cases, ancient metals line up in tight rows, gleaming like they're ready to tell their secrets, and right beside them, jars crowd the shelves, packed tight with bizarre plants and eerie little specimens. Alf whips his head around the jam-packed room and realizes this is exactly the place Jiraru swore they'd find, just as the rest of the truth slams into place while Lyfia just soaks it all in. She blurts out that this one shop is packed with an insane amount of stuff. From the back of the store, they suddenly hear footsteps closing in. A sharp-looking guy with glasses strides in and asks, "So you two are first-timers, what kind of experience are you looking for? What kind of deal lured them here in the first place?" Alf shoots a quick hello while he drags that heavy bag up the left side, letting the shopkeeper know he's got something in his hands that he's ready to sell. He tells them it's not just trash. One of his friends asked him to get rid of it. Glance behind the counter one more time, take a look while the shopkeeper just glares at him, skepticism dripping off his face, and then lets out a loud, frustrated grunt. The guy straight up says they don't usually waste time buying junk, until Alf. He blurts out fast, swearing this isn't some throwaway trash at all. Finally, the shopkeeper cracked and said, "All right, show me what you brought," and promised he'd take a look. Alf and Lyfia just hang back, eyes locked on him, waiting to hear what he's thinking. The second he spots the item clearly, his eyes flare wide and his sentence tumbles out halfway. The shopkeeper's eyes nearly burst out of his skull when he blurts, "Wait, are you telling me this is real mixed silver from the Old Kingdom?" He can't believe this thing hasn't aged a single day, or what. He doesn't even flinch, then he snaps his head up and demands of Alf, "Where did you dig up something like this?" The guy freezes behind the counter, staring in total disbelief at what's sitting right in front of him. So Alf stays calm and tells him it's just a favor for a friend he barely knows, meaning he doesn't have a clue about the real details. Alf shoots the name back at him, sounding genuinely shocked that it's become such a huge deal while the shopkeeper shrugs off the deflection and keeps his eyes locked on the metal, insisting it's real Old Kingdom silver, again and again. He rants that this stuff is the raw base for items, right there, one step under the top-tier magic tools and artifacts. His fingers blur across the abacus and he leans in like, "I've got a massive amount ready right now." His whole vibe flipped overnight. Now he's crisp, locked in, and itching to strike the deal cutting out. Alf and Lyfia just stood frozen in place, mouths dropped in pure shock, stunned out of his mind by the number that guy just casually tossed. Alf's eyes snap wide and he's completely blown away by the map. A staggering pile of money gets tossed around like it's nothing. While Leifia can't even wrap her head around it, she blurts that 140,000 gald is literally what she earns in an entire year. Alf keeps his cool, then shoots back like, "Is that really all you've got?" Which snaps the shopkeeper into reality. He knows he's got to pay top price for something this high quality. With everyone leaning in, he roared that he'd go up to 1.9 million and swore they'd never find a better deal anywhere else. Alf just locks eyes on him for a heartbeat, and the pressure hits like a wave. Those numbers spike harder by the second, but in the end he finally cracks and blurts out that it's an insane amount, but he grabs it as the shopkeeper beams at them and urges, "Come back soon." They burst back out into the blazing city streets. The sun's blazing high, the whole area's buzzing nonstop, and Alf. He hauls that heavy coin pouch close to his chest, and the gold jingles loud with every step he takes. And then he blurts out that they ended up with 19 gold coins altogether, grinning as he imagines just how insanely happy Jururu's going to be when they. Leifia asks if what they sold really covers it, and Alf fires back that it's way more than enough. Alpha leans in and tells everyone that even with just that one gold coin, they could snag more food than their own hands could ever carry. Leifia's jaw drops as she blurts out that it sounds absolutely incredible. Alf scans the list again, brow furrowed, demanding to know what else they're supposed to do, because at this point it feels like the whole trip is just for groceries. He pushes them to go deeper into the market and tells Leifia to snag anything she wants for herself, too. They barrel past street stalls stacked high with fresh fish, glinting like treasure. Leifia jabbed at random items and demanded to know what they were, and Alf grinned, telling her they were just fresh veggies straight from nearby farms. She keeps peppering her with questions about every little thing she spots, and Alf finally tells her those hanging birds are perfect, either grilled to a crisp or boiled up nice. Alf catches herself acting like she's never even stepped foot inside a market before. Leifia's guard snaps up, she fires back, asking if it's really that obvious, and then she drops this bombshell back when she was so small she barely left her room, she only ever went out with her wet nurse by her side. Alf shoots a glance at her and drops a thought in his head, how a regular market is suddenly a huge deal for her. He leans in and tells her, "I get it now." And suddenly he understands why every last thing around here keeps snaring her attention like that. As they stride past the stalls, Alf leans in and drops the truth. Il Malta's loaded with seafood, not vegetables. He's telling you it all comes down to a deal with a neighbor country, one with a massive lake teeming with fish. He grins and tells her, "See, you really do light up for every tiny thing you spot," and Leifia can't stop staring at She stares at the fish and blurts that they look so real it makes her life in the abyss feel like a lie. Suggests they should snatch some up as a thank you gift for Jururu. They rush to the shop and wrap up the rest of their shopping before the day's over. Before they even catch their breath, they're stuffed with supplies, lugging massive bags of food until Alf asks if the load is getting too heavy, and Leifia just flashes a grin, she's totally fine. Alf blurts out, "This is insane," because there's no way they grabbed that much stuff, those bags should feel absolutely crushing, but Leifia just turns back to him, flashes a smile and asks, "Are you really sure everything's okay?" She double-checks their whole trip like a hawk, and Alpha just grins and assures her he's got everything covered all the time. The two of them stand in the market, arms overflowing with massive supply sacks. Alf glances at the stalls and thinks, "I better snag some seasoning while we're here," so he whips back around to apologize to Leifia for the delay. Then the moment he opens his mouth, he spots the exact spot where she'd been standing. Now it's empty, and he whips his head around the crowd, panicking as he searches. He hangs in silence for one tense beat, then blurts out her name just to see if she's there. Watch where she goes next. Leifia has slipped away, she's standing right in front of. Gazed at another stall, and the worker inside stared back like they'd just seen a ghost. Glued to his eyes, he stared at that weird thing like it was about to move. She stared at all the hanging things, then her stomach dropped as she wondered what kind of monster she was really facing. Leifia freezes, staring down that bizarre creature like it just crawled out of a nightmare. He stared at the legs, spotted like bananas, while that little tuft looked way too soft to resist. The shopkeeper clocked her staring, waved a hand like, "It's just an octopus," and asked why she'd never seen one before. She freezes on the spot, stunned and whispering octopus to herself over and over, trying to wrap her head around what it even means. He tells her the deal right away, one leg costs 3 copper coins, then he gets. And he grins, saying since she's cute, he'll hand over 2 extra legs for free. Lifia practically bursts with excitement, blurting, "Are you for real?" and then immediately yells at Alf to show him exactly what happened. A woman at the stall next to them chops in, splitting her words in 2, then blurts out that she's got a little bonus for her too. Lifia just freezes in shock as the locals keep showering her with kindness. The market is buzzing like a live wire. People weave through the stalls, slinging jokes and chatter left and right. She whips her gaze across the crowd, eyes blazing wide when she finally realizes this world isn't like hers at all. Back in the roaring market, the cloaked girl whips her head through the crowd, hunting for Alf. She yells his name over everyone else, trying to spot him before he slips away. A colossal building towers in the sky, its gigantic pillars looming like they're daring the clouds to look away. Inside, someone yells Zaid Vengus and orders him to take what's being offered. This is a formal handoff of something that matters. Zaid shuts his eyes tight, bows his head low, and admits, without hesitation, that he'll carry the responsibility, fully locked in and dead serious about the job in front of him. The sun hangs over that massive stone building, turning it into something way more official and way more intimidating. Leaves hiss and rustle in the dense trees nearby, blazing under the bright midday sun. Coins clatter like crazy as a hand thrusts a towering mountain of cash into the air. Zaid huddles by himself on the broad stone steps of the building, like the whole world fell quiet around him. He stares down at the cash, grinning so hard it's almost smug, and whispers that this is way more than he ever thought he'd find. He tells himself this giant haul has to be the reward for finally locking in on his work, and the satisfaction hits him like a wave. Zaid's got that smug grin on his face like he's just stolen the win right out from under everyone. Oh wait, is he about to say it? He stares at the bag of coins and practically brags about it, because now that the annoying guy is gone, their pay is finally about to skyrocket. He whips his head back at his coworkers and tells them, get Alf to read around. It was honestly a total nightmare. He rants about how much he despises Alf's face and how he's been stuck greeting him every single morning. So now he's just relieved the guy's finally gone. Zaid leans back, drops his shoulders, and lets himself finally unwind, reaching across the table to snatch a snack and he lifts it to his face, ready to unleash whatever comes next. As he keeps running his mouth, talking pure trash, he tells Alf that if he hadn't set off that explosion, he could have done basically anything he wanted, and the whole mess is a total shame. Zaid cranes his head toward the blazing sky and blurts it out to Alpha. To chase one last taste of happiness in the afterlife. Zaid downs the last bite, eyes locked in with a serious, no-nonsense stare. Meanwhile, a crew of workers crowd the sidewalk and one of them spots him. Recognition hits like a shock. He locks eyes with him and instantly knows it's Zaid. As they stare at him slumped on the steps, the guy blurts out that he heard Zaid just snagged an insane promotion that turned everything upside down. The other worker snaps that it's all because Alf fell from grace after that murder, and the first guy finally admits it outright. He's just jealous, even if the job is nothing but non-stop trouble. He basically says this is still a huge deal, because the palace is staring right at it. Then he drops a wild rumor, one about a soldier who slipped into the royal's estate and vanished without a trace. And the other guy goes, that's a total mess, especially because everybody already knows. They keep saying a murder case like this won't just vanish, no matter how hard the person tries to respond. Then the responsible one gets sentenced to death and executed. One of the workers leans in and tells everyone to just picture what would happen if Alf ever actually returned to the country. They're convinced that if he dares to show up again, everything's about to go absolutely sideways fast. Ugly for everyone. Zaid flashes a smug grin and says it's finally happening. Everything's lining up exactly the way he wanted. He starts dreaming up this new life and then it hits him hard. He's carrying the workload of 2 people alone with no one to share the burden. Now that his pay's jumped, he's finally letting out a real sigh of relief, feeling satisfied with how everything's falling into place. Outside the Grand Palace, the sky sprawls in heavy clouds as he pushes through the day like it's his mission. He figures the curse-breaking gigs might be getting slammed lately, but for him, it's still a total breeze. With his cursed item super sight, he can sniff out the real threats in seconds and move a mile faster than anyone else in the game. With a coin clutched in his fist, he grins and says that ever since Alf vanished, it's been pure good news, and his luck is finally flipping around for real. Right then, the coin slips free and smacks the cobblestones with a sharp metallic clink. Zaid slams on the brakes and stares it down, like it just stepped into his territory. His face tightened, and suddenly that calm look turned into something serious. He just stands alone on that massive stone, like the world forgot him. Stone steps tower behind, as a tiny figure strides up to the massive palace like it's daring the world to blink. That coin just sits there on the uneven stone ground, like Zaid's plan is already one step ahead. His expression snapped tight like he just spotted something he absolutely couldn't stand. He snaps out an annoyed grunt and keeps his eyes locked on the golds. Standing over it like a looming shadow, he freezes for a whole heartbeat. Zaid goes stone still and says nothing, staring at that coin like it's about to explode into fate, and his eyes narrow hard as he fights to crack the mystery behind why his luck suddenly feels wrong. He leaned down fast, stretching his hand to snatch it off the pavement. His fingers shot downward, almost brushing the cold. Cold metal clattered against the ground, like it was warning everyone to brace themselves. Right when he's about to grab it, a voice blasts his name from the top of the stairs, and it instantly throws him off. Zaid lifts his head as the guy asks for a minute to talk, and just like that, the whole weird coin moment is finally done. Lord Valerius catches Zaid mid-escape and demands, "So you're really bailing this early?" He lifts a tiny object and tells Zaid, "I've got a curse-breaking emergency, you're the one who has to handle it." Zaid doesn't even flinch, he just stares him down and demands, "All right, what's the job really?" Valerius thrusts a ring into the light and there it is, an unmistakable flower pattern stamped on top for him to lock eyes on. Zaid snatches the truth in the air, saying it's only a ring, then Valerius explodes mid-sentence, cutting him off. He blurts out that it's someone he knows, then leans in and asks if Zaid can handle taking care of it. Zaid leans in and calls it a cursed junk tool, useless trash that doesn't do a damn thing, but collectors still lose their minds over it. He calls out that kind of person, straight to the point. They just can't help it grab more for their stash even if they'll never use a single scrap. It's the kind of hype novelty people chase just to own it, and it stays impossible to get for that exact reason. So Zaid assumes that some guy's mistress probably practically begged him to score it for her, something along those lines. No matter the reason, Zaid slides in and tells him, "I've got this," and then he nods along, taking the task on himself. The story slides into a silent, fancy room with a towering ceiling that feels almost too grand for the moment. Zaid's already at the desk, looming over the ring as a glowing circle of energy flares to life while he starts working. He wraps up his inspection, declares that's enough for now, and just as he keeps his eyes locked on that flower-patterned ring on the table like it's about to explode, just staring it down with a searing. He shot a sharp, serious glance around, making sure he didn't miss a single detail. He taps the ring and checks it up close. No curses, no explosives, nothing. So Zaid storms to the conclusion that it was uncursed from the very beginning. He decides that's about the only thing he can possibly check before everything moves on his end, saying if they even flinch or react after this, it's just bad luck, pure, brutal, and totally unfair. Right then, Valerius strides into the room with a crushing weight in his hands and fires off, "So how's the work coming along?" Zaid kicks it off by leaning into Valerius and saying, "Everything's going insanely well right now. But as for the real work, they'll just have to wait and see how this thing plays out." He casually flicks the flower ring across the room, and it sails through the air like a straight-up challenge. It smacks straight into Valerius' hand, and he snatches it in one clean grab, eyes locking on it as he draws in a breath. Totally blindsided, Valerius snaps, "Wait, are you already done with it? I didn't think you'd finish that fast," and Jade just shrugs and says, "You're welcome," then adds that the girl turned out to be pretty easy to read. Valerius calls him a total lifesaver and admits his entire reputation was hanging by a thread. He finally blurts the truth: he's been blackmailed because someone swore they'd expose his affair unless he handed her that gift. Zaid freezes for a split second and the truth finally crashes in. Before he even finishes that sigh, he looks completely fed up with Valerius and all the chaos. Zaid shrugs and says he'll act like he never heard that last part. Then Valerius just nods and goes, "Thanks." As he strides down the hall with Valeria, his assistant, he suddenly halts and asks, "Got a second?" Zaid strides right up to him, closing the distance fast. Then he calls him Commander the moment he's close enough. Valerius cranes his head toward the work Zaid's doing, tells him he can tell he's going all in, but Zaid doesn't even blink once. Blink for a second, he's doing all of this because it's for the country, plain and simple. Valerius shuts his eyes with a smug smile, then tells Zaid that's the exact attitude he needs. He tells Zaid, don't slow down, stick with it, because they're counting on him to keep everything from falling apart out there. Zaid simply tips his head and offers a courteous thanks, eyes locked in like his whole soul is on the mission. Valerius and his subordinates stalk out and Zaid is left alone, back to whatever he was doing before they barged in. Behind him, a towering, chaotic heap of feathered creatures sprawls through the whole room, completely taking it over. Zaid eyed the two royal guard men, Casimir, the higher-up with the mustache, and the recruit Luster. He clocks it instantly. Luster's been putting in way more effort to talk to him than ever before, and it's got him wondering. That tracks because Luster's one of the top new rookies gunning for a commander slot in the capital, so Zaid keeping things friendly is a smart move. And Zaid is already knee-deep in work, drowning in requests, slipping in with the king's own help just recently. The office is chaos, boxes stacked everywhere, yet Alf stays locked in at his desk in the back But on that table there's one plain flat package just sitting there, daring him to pick it up because it's clearly meant to be taken. Zaid flashes a tiny smirk and goes, honestly, this might be one of the best days. So he decides to spoil himself and hunt down something genuinely good to eat for once. The story whips outside into a blazing afternoon, right into a local market that's jam-packed with people and everyone barrels through the stalls non-stop, turning the whole place into a roaring storm of life and energy. Zaid barrels through the packed, noisy streets, never slowing down for a second. Market, realizing it's been forever since he had a second to show up, he's been buried in work for so long that he barely gets a second to breathe, and even with everything crashing around him, he still clocks it. The place looks exactly the same as always. Just like he remembers, he clutches a tiny bag, swivels his gaze, and then it hits him, Alf, wrecked and desperate, barely managing to keep his head above water. Zaid's eyes snap sharp, like he just caught something dangerous. For one split second, he freezes on that look, then tears through the crowd, dragging his mind back to the past. He storms away from that memory, leaving it burning behind him. Memory hits hard, yeah, it's a real shame what happened to that guy, but honestly, Alf was just built different and Zaid keeps pushing forward, shoving those thoughts aside as he weaves through the crowd of shoppers until he skids to a stop at a fruit stall overflowing with fresh, juicy produce. He stood nose to nose with the shopkeeper, staring him down. He asks the old man for a fruit, and the old guy immediately hands one over, thanking him for stopping by. The shopkeeper squints and says, "Man, it's been ages since I last saw you," then adds that Zaid looks like he's been non-stop busy. So Zaid just nods, admits he's been slammed, says the job's getting done, but you can tell it's crushing him. As the shopkeeper storms away, he tells Zaid to watch himself. Then Zaid snatches the dark fruit and heads out into the clear sky. He takes this massive bite of the snack, then pushes straight into the crowd, weaving through everyone as he goes. He looks laser-focused, chomping on the fruit non-stop while scanning every corner like he's hunting for trouble. Zaid flicks his eyes downward for the briefest moment. He got swallowed by his own thoughts while weaving through the chaos of a busy street. He stares at the bite he took and goes, "Wait, this fruit is actually crazy good," but the place is jammed with people today, and everyone's out there hunting for deals near those crisp white tents. Zaid strides at a steady pace, soaking in the buzzing stalls all around him as crowds stream past. He slips into the crowd like he was born for it, pushing deeper and deeper until he's right in the heart of the marketplace. Zaid stares around and mutters to himself, amazed at how ancient this market feels. It's barely changed at all, he's the same kid at heart. And he can't stop wondering if people ever get bored watching the same boring tools, same dull scenery, day after day, like nothing ever changes. Zaid weaves through the roaring market, eyes razor-sharp and head on a constant swivel, like he's hunting for trouble when. Then, right out of nowhere, this person storms in hauling 3 huge white bundles that are way too big for one person, and you can't help but stare because one dude locks onto everyone nearby to stare and then, like he's losing his mind, asks what the hell that even is while someone else snaps, "That luggage is straight up ridiculous. Ridiculously huge." And the crowd won't shut up about it. Someone even asks how many months of supplies could possibly fit in there, and they're just standing there, totally stunned by how massive it is. Zaid hears every scrap of noise, whips his head around, and the sight hits him like a truck, so he squints hard, trying to cut through all that gear and figure out who's really underneath. Then he spots a hooded figure strolling along like nothing's wrong, hauling that huge load straight through the crowded street. Under the hood, Lifia's gaze stays razor steady. She's locked in on cutting through the crowd, but Zaid starts to sweat the second it hits him. He's totally rattled to see her out here in the open like this. Yet Lifia doesn't even clock him. She keeps her gaze locked straight ahead and strides through the market with an ice-cold, completely unshaken face. Zaid steps back and watches Lifia push through the crowd. She's totally oblivious to him and the whole time But the second he sees her, his entire composure snaps. He's sweating bullets and he looks like he just saw a ghost. He starts spiraling, thinking about how her face and body hit every single thing he's always craved in a woman. And in his eyes, she's a straight-up goddess stepping down to earth. He can't tear his gaze away for even a second. Right then, Zaid snaps. He's decided he has to make her his, eyes blazing with that unhinged, "I'm not backing down" look like he's already decided. Then he strides forward and calls out to her, demanding her attention. He steps into her path dead center in the market, and she halts hard gear and all right there in front of everyone while tries to play it cool, asks if it's heavy, then offers to swoop in and help her carry it. She just stares at him, shuts him down with a firm "no thank you," and makes it brutally clear she's not interested in. Zaid keeps pressing her, claiming it's all fine, but she just cuts him off and shuts him down again. Zaid shoots his arm out and grabs for Lifia, urging her to stop being so shy as he closes the distance. Then she whips around instantly with a sharp, sudden move that totally catches him by surprise. Zaid slams straight into the ground, throws his arms up to shield his face and screams as he hits the dirt. Lifia towers over him, staring down like she's dead serious and won't take no for an answer. She fixes him with an icy stare, like she's completely done with his nonsense, so Zaid snaps his glare back at her, sweat pouring as pure fury takes over, like the universe just slapped him down. He snaps into a full-on yelling fit at her, demanding to know what the hell does she think she's doing to him. Lifia doesn't even blink, she just fires back, "What do you mean?" and cuts him off to say she only shoved away the guy who. Then he lets out this huge sigh, like he's convinced he's the whole problem and she's wasting her time on him. She ends with a cold warning. He's lucky she didn't go beyond that and toss him off for real. Lifia doesn't mince words. She storms up to Zaid and warns him. If he'd actually gotten his hands on her, things would have gotten way worse. Zaid totally snaps. He's screaming that he was being nice, that she's just getting way too full of herself, but she snaps at him saying, "I'm not something you can buy." And she makes it crystal clear that only one person is allowed to touch her. She freezes mid-sentence, and the second she realizes who she's talking about, her face erupts into bright red heat. Right then, a voice ripped through the air and shouted "Lifia" from across the area, yanking her attention in an instant. Alf Reed bursts in looking totally relieved, and she blurts out that she's so glad he finally found her after they got ripped apart in the crowd. The second Lifia spots him, her whole vibe flips, eyes blazing wide, and that huge smile hits like a spark. She's thrilled he actually showed up to find her, and Alf wastes no time. He just checks in and asks how she's holding up, alone out there. Zaid's stuck watching everything from the sidelines, fuming because she's already with another guy, and so the two of them stride off together, and the frustrated noble is left standing there all alone. Alfred stands right in the middle of the crowd, his face half swallowed by shadow. Zaid goes completely silent, staring at the hooded man like his eyes are trying to crack a mystery. He grabs his chest in pure frustration, then mutters through clenched teeth that he's way above some random hooded nobody. Zaid's rant keeps rolling, and he just stares back with that same icy, unshaken look. Tension hangs in the air as Alf and Liphius dig in and stare down whatever comes next, standing their ground, staring right back at the noble F like it owed him an answer. All around him, people start clocking Alf immediately, because he's just standing there, totally unbothered, like the whole area is his and everyone else is visiting. Zaid starts freaking out, trying to figure out why this guy won't blink, why he keeps staring him down like that, but he's locked in his own head, replaying it all, wondering where he's seen Zaid's face before. Zaid finally snaps, erupts into a shout, and demands what he's staring at, right before it all turns and Then Alf's eyes blew wide open, his thoughts derailed instantly, like Zaid's name finally hit the right nerve. Alf snaps to the danger and screams at Lifia to bolt, and right as she takes off, Zaid dives into the crowd straight after them. Zaid screams for them to come back, but they're already tearing through the streets like nothing can stop them. He's clearly taking the hit. He grunts through the pain as he fights to steady himself. Everyone else freezes in stunned confusion, still trying to process that insane scene as it just plays out before their eyes. Zaid goes deadly quiet for a heartbeat, just standing there with a serious stare that says trouble is coming. He glares at the floor, clutching his neck, realizing he actually let her slip right out of his hands. With the whole fight replaying in his head, he can't deny it. He's genuinely blown away by that woman's insane brute strength, but that isn't even the biggest weight on his chest. He can't shake the feeling crawling up his spine like he just heard what that guy. He heard it somewhere earlier, and now he's scrambling to remember where he could have met them. Meanwhile, Alf and Lifia are still standing right on the edge of chaos, waiting for the next move. They kept sprinting for dear life, panting hard, until they finally carved out some space between them. Alf and Lifia keep pushing through the streets, and he thinks they've finally made it safe at last, right up until he glances over at her and asks, "Did that guy do anything to you back there?" Lifia tells him she's doing fine, and Alf's entire world finally exhales with relief. But then she shoots him a question: did he really know that guy from earlier? And Alf finally admits, yeah, he did. But he makes a point of saying it was only a. Lifia drops her gaze to the ground for a beat, and you can tell the whole mess is crushing her. So she finally blurts out a real apology for wandering off and unleashing all that chaos. She just got swallowed by the market and completely lost her footing, so Alf steps in and tells her, No, you should let me say it. He muttered an apology because he'd gotten distracted at the spice stall, and somehow he lost track of her. Lifia grins and says she stumbled on an octopus, and she just couldn't stop herself from buying it so she could show him. Alf glances down and spots a massive tear ripping through the bottom of Lifia's cloak. She catches it instantly, makes a small gasp, and in the same breath both of them realize, yeah, it's broken. Lifia can't shake the feeling it must have caught on something earlier when they were. Alf just nods along and tells her, yeah, you're probably right. She snaps that they're out of time to shop for a new one right now, so they'll just have to patch it up later. Wind hammers the trees above the market as they don't slow down for even a second. They slip through the roaring crowd together, trying to stay unnoticed. Alf can't shake that guy from his mind. He's convinced it was Zaid back there, and then it hits him. It must be the lunch rush, which is wild, because Zaid usually can't stand being stuck around crowds like this. Meanwhile, Zaid is right there nearby, freaking out, jaw tight, nerves frayed. Alf stands frozen in place, a weight of worry crushing his face as he stares off, lost in his. He couldn't shake the thought that his old team was thriving without him. Hell, they were even rocking way nicer clothes than they ever did before. Everything they've got on screams big leagues, clean, perfectly pressed, and expensive as hell, like they've hit the jackpot and won't stop staying busy. The memory of his past slams into him like a silent scream he's desperate to finally let out, and he just fixes his gaze straight ahead, eyes blazing with emotion, churned with regret and frustration, twisting in his chest. It honestly feels like the whole world is pushing him out, like he doesn't even belong there anymore. He can't stop replaying that place in his head, the one that belonged to all of them back when they were still together. But those days are history now. What's left is the cold, grim truth stamped into those old reports. He devours the details about how the victim was discovered in a vicious, torn-apart condition, while the hallway was smeared with pure chaos. As Alf takes a sip of tea, his eyes snap to the page, because those are the exact words from the paper, the one he's been stuck on the whole time. This morning they finally pinned him down. Right after Alfie slammed the report on the cursed tool explosion shut, an official snapped her name and called out to her fast, yelling at him to get moving until he finally snaps awake, stands up and walks out of his seat. The moment he snaps, he swings and punches, tea erupts and spills everywhere, and blasted him flying clear across the hallway, stranding him there with nothing left but the echo of people screaming in his face. He can't stop asking why they ever handed him that tool in the first place, and why they launched it out there while it's still cursed. And right now, he's certain of one thing: his life is basically over. That's the only thought hammering in his head as he stands there, swallowed by the shadows, just staring, stunned, as the weight of everything finally crashes down and makes reality hit. He starts replaying every favorite tool he owns, every bit of research he loved, only to realize it's all just sitting there, unfinished, like it's waiting for him to snap back to action. So now he's gone. Are we just supposed to watch the country keep rolling like nothing ever happened? He's hunched over his desk, buried in his work, when a voice snaps from behind, still grinding. He glances back and tells Zaid he's early, but Zaid shrugs it off like that's the most normal thing in the world. The spotlight snaps to that tiny, ornate tool ALF has been crushing on for ages, and Zaid just freezes in place, staring straight at it in dead silence for a split second. Zaid finally blurts out, "Why aren't you finished yet? It's just a tiny cursed tool," and Alf has to cough up the truth. He's still stuck. He tells me the whole thing is way more complicated than it looks, and he might need to run it by the professor just to be safe. Alf barely gets a second to breathe before Zaid lunges forward and swipes the tool clean off the table, saying something this small isn't dangerous at all and there's no reason to launch a full dispel, especially when Alf keeps telling him to stop. Zaid snaps at him to listen as Alf yanks the story right out of the silence, straight into action. Yanks the tool back, face tight with panic because his friend S being reckless again. He tried one more time to make them understand. Those inner parts don't just move, they twist in a way that's way more complicated than it looks. Alf's talking like a man on a mission, double-checking every tiny detail, because he knows one curse could be lurking anywhere. He tells Zaid, "You don't just hand it back to the client if there's even a sliver of danger left, so no, I'm not finished yet." Zaid just stands there, fuming through the entire situation like it's personally insulting him. Letting out a heavy sigh, I told Alf to listen, because that thing looks spotless, like it's got 0 curses on it. He keeps grinding forward, insisting there's just no point wasting more time staring at it. But Alf won't back off. He locks eyes with him and he swears that if there's even a 1% shot, he'll hunt down the answer no matter what. He whirls back to the tool and starts talking, dropping that line. He's already so close to cracking the layout around those screws at the base. But Zaid shoots back, saying his way eats up way too much time. A voice from the doorway crackles in, asking how the work is coming along. Then Derry Swankrow, the department director, storms in to personally check on both Zaid and Alf. Lyphia and Lord Valerius both stood there like the whole world was holding its breath. Darius bursts into the room, and the second Lyphia sees him, she blurts out his name like she's been waiting for this moment. Zaid quickly drops into a bow and pleads for a little slack, praying Darius forgives how casual he'd been, because they're old schoolmates who have got history. Yet Darius waves it off like it's nothing, saying it's totally fine, and he clocks how brutally hard the two of them have been grinding at their work, but Zaid just waves it off like it's nothing, saying they only made it this far because of him. But as Darius scans the gear, a light bulb suddenly clicks in his head, like seeing it triggers a memory he can't afford to ignore. He's talking about this specific cursive tool that was just dragged out of those brand new ruins, and the story keeps unfolding like it's about to blow wide open. Breaks down how that thing's structure is so insanely fascinating that it practically screams for everyone's attention.